long-term relationship, which could be game-changing in terms of how international overall markets are managed and regulated. And therefore, I think it's an interesting initial first important step of agreement in principle, which has to go step by step forward in implementing each of these areas. And in different areas, we will have different challenges to continue. And this might take another maybe 10 years or so when all that is visualized today can actually fructify.
Okay.
Some sectors, as Shweta said, will have kickstart much earlier from January next year maybe. But other sectors will continue to face their own hurdles. And I think both sides are showcasing that intent to work together in overcoming each of these hurdles. And therefore, you see both sides are calling it a historic deal, a mother of all deals, and so on. That inclination to showcase enthusiasm on both sides is something that appears promising right now. But it will take, of course, much longer time to actually achieve each of these things that they are visualizing, which can bring them together and push their own national interests in building these partnerships.
Okay. Air Commodore Bahal, this is not a question directly linked with the EU, but, when we talk about defense, we look for partnerships, we look for commitments from abroad. But there is also one thing which we haven't addressed. The reason why China and United States of America have become global leaders in defense is because there is a fusion of civilian and military leadership. There is great synergy there. And they don't work in silos. So unless and until we break those silos, I don't think, despite having multiple, FTAs, the entire ecosystem is not going to operationalize the way the Chinese ecosystem has become. The sort of R&D which the Chinese universities are producing, they have far surpassed American universities now. And that is why they are number one. So I think that is one issue we have not looked at. We become strong by, making more friends abroad. But I think the strength has to be looked from within. And I think that cannot come without that synergy between the civilian and defense sectors.
Karthikeya, actually, you have answered it. Now, I got to support it primarily because it's absolutely true what you just said. And let me tell you one thing. I'm, first of all, very impressed how you have hit at the right button so easily. Let me tell you this. If you look at China's example, they have a Politburo standing committee, which is the top political decision-making body, which has about 7 members. Right now, 1 member less because the general Zhang was arrested a few days back. So the second is their Central Military Commission. And who's heading both of these? The Chinese President Xi Jinping. So automatically what happens, the committee that decides on the procurements and development of defense systems is Central Military Commission, and the one that takes all political decisions, Politburo Standing Committee, and both are headed by the same person. So automatically the civil military fusion and the fusion with the fusion with the fusion with the universities of China, especially those that relate to defense technology, is phenomenally good. In fact, when they come to robotics and after artificial intelligence, they have fused the Chinese universities, like our IITs, they have fused them with the defense and with the civilian industries so that they come out with one of the fastest growing deep sea product or growing 5th or 6th generation technology such as wolf or dog. That I'm talking of wolf or dog not as a kind of actual wolves and dogs, but I'm talking of them as robotics, humanoid robotics or otherwise. So when we are looking at those systems which are well advanced, primarily because there is a fusion taken place between civil and military, and which has been pushed through by the autocratic political establishment. In America, there is large number of funds, huge amount of funds that are given to the private industries. India has started now. The great thing about our country is that in the last few years, we have really taken steps on this. We got Aditi, we got IDEX. Aditi is innovative technologies and the funds that are given to that. And IDEX is another way of ensuring that indigenization takes place in our Indian defense equipment. So when they are giving funds, and this is funds being given to startups or MSMEs so that they can come up with drones, with artificial intelligence, with other fifth or sixth generation technology systems. And it has only started 2 years back. So it is going to take time. But what my personal feeling at this moment of time, if we have to really jump the present short gaps, like the Indian Air Force is going to come up with 12 squadrons less, primarily because they're already becoming outdated, and by 2035 they would have finished even extended lives. So what we need to do is, for the short term also, we need to focus more on co-development. We started one thing, we started very nicely. We started with Tata Advanced Systems Limited manufacturing of Rafale fuselage. It is not just for India that these Rafale fuselages will be made. It is going to be made for entire globe. 150 orders of Rafale aircraft are pending with France, and they have only the capacity of manufacturing 12 to 13 in 1 year. So they are looking for expansion of manufacturing capability in a place where intellectual talent is available. And what best place than India? So that is how the project has come up, where we are going to manufacture Rafale fuselages in India, which occupies 60% of the cost of the aircraft without engine. And in addition to that, the entire ecosystem, in the military industrial complex ecosystem, is going to come up in Hyderabad, Baroda, and many such places. So look at how you're going to catch up with the world. Is the mantra is co-development and co-production, co-designing, like the other ambassador as well as other esteemed guest has said.
Absolutely. And given that India has the largest youth population in the world, I think no better place to have innovation, to invest in that innovation and human capital than India. Gentlemen, we're going to take a very short break, but we'll be back with you. We are, of course, tracking all the contours of the India-EU deal, which will emerge in just a short while from now. The pictures, the smiling pictures of the US delegation
and press
sitting
conference
right
at 1:15 sharp.
Right opposite to India's delegation, flanked by the biggest cabinet ministers. That photo op is already on our screens right now. In just about 15 minutes, we're going to get you that press conference and the details as they emerge of one of the biggest deals signed in history of this country. But after this very short break.
भारत की सबसे बड़ी गोल्ड लोन एनबीएफसी मुथूट फाइनेंस से गोल्ड लोन लीजिए और फिर देखिए सोना क्या नहीं कर सकता। कॉल कीजिए 1-800-313-1212।
रिश्तों को रंग दो, दुनिया को रंग दो।
Birla Opus Paints.
Taxes, jobs, housing, electric vehicles, defense. News9 decodes the numbers behind the noise. You define India's growth story. We decode what's in it for you. Budget 2026. No noise, no confusion. A budget for a bulletproof Bharat.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
Welcome back. You're watching News9 with me, Shweta Kothari, and Kartikeya Sharma, who's going to be back in just a short while from now. We're tracking the details of the India-EU trade agreement, the free trade agreement that has now been concluded. The signing ceremony is going to be beginning in just a short while from now at 1:15, which is 1:15. We'll also get the details of the fine print as to what India and EU have finally arrived at. On the show with me is Ujjwal Singh Bhatia, former ambassador to WTO, Ambassador Prabhu Dayal, as well as Professor Swaran Singh and Air Commodore Bahel. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for staying put. I want to come to you, Ambassador Bhatia. Before we went into break, we were also talking about the gains for India's IT and services sector. And some of the impediments, as Kartikeya pointed out, could be by the way of moles, visa caps, data localization laws, and many experts are of the view that many of these hindrances could blunt the gains that India's IT and services sector will make, at least in the interim. Do you believe that perhaps when the details emerge, India would have been able to carve out some sort of agreement with the EU when it comes to some of these challenges? And what, in your assessment, could be the biggest impediment?
Well, I think we can expect some liberalization of mobility in terms of what we call the Mode 4 movement of professionals. And this relates to professionals of all kinds, not only IT, but for instance, paramedicals. That is an increasing number of paramedicals from India seeking employment abroad. So I think there will be some liberalization on that. But I think I would like to flag again one important issue, which is about data security. And I think it is important for the two sides to thresh out their differences on the data protection laws in the European Union and in India to find common ground so that India is declared a data secure country by the European Union. And once that happens, I think we can expect a much more significant increase in services related to digital flows. Beyond that, I think the question is that in the European Union, because of its demographics, requires skilled professionals. Now, there are, of course, issues relating to immigration in all countries. But it is important to define the terms and conditions of temporary movement of skilled professionals from India to the European Union. Let me also say that the outsourcing model that Indian IT companies have followed for at least 2 decades, I think because of technological changes, that is being recast. And to that extent, the movement of IT professionals is not so determinative as it used to be in the past. But beyond IT, I think there are a number of other fields where skilled professionals need to move. And I'm confident that this FTA will have provisions, liberalized provisions for such movements.
You know, I have to also come to Professor Swaran Singh at this point. Your final word on 1 or 2 key sectors that have been left out, that include, as we mentioned earlier, discussed earlier, agriculture, poultry, and dairy sector. Now, these are crucial sectors, but they also need some sort of modernization. While what we saw in the last decade was government trying to modernize and reform these sectors by the way of the 3 farm laws, which had to be eventually rolled back. Without getting into politics of it, we need to modernize our agri-exports and integrate them into high value chain. Do you think we're also missing out on an opportunity here by the way of keeping these sectors out? I know they're politically sensitive. I know, you know, those are sectors you can't easily touch in India because there's so much of hullabaloo that will come into force that would perhaps, undermine the efforts that India has made towards finalizing this trade deal. But, it's like we're giving up very easy on some of these sectors that need modernization, that need reforms.
Perfectly right, Shweta. You partly answered yourself. That's a complex question of modernizing India's agricultural sector of farms or dairy or related sectors. And partly one cannot compromise on those areas in terms of giving them a push or nudge to go out of their comfort sector because they are a large vote bank for any political party in this country. But that cannot be the way India will grow if it has to become the 3rd largest economy. That sector is a major sector that will need a major disruption, maybe incrementally. And therefore, I think this working together with various European countries, which some of them have leading positions in agriculture production, in dairy and so on, could perhaps give certain advantage in transfer of technology, skill development, in terms of input improvements at various levels. But yes, that's not an option that India cannot really modernize its agricultural sector. That has to happen so that the traditional model of economic development would be that ultimately manufacturing has to go up and the tertiary sectors have to really be the leading contributors to India's GDP growth. And that will happen over a period of time is what is being underlined here. Gradually, some concessions are being made, will be made in coming times, and technology transfers, best practices, etc., will be shared. But that is where we are saying that some of these sectors will take longer period of time to build those partnerships with the European Union.
Absolutely. And you know, I mean, come to think of it, economically, Kartikeya, and as well as Professor Singh, I think it's a sector that's the backbone of India's economy, which should have seen some sort of modernization early on and hasn't seen it so far yet because of how politically sensitive it is. So I think, you know, it's a very fine balancing act there, and also something that we need to figure out how to do it right. Professor Swaran Singh, thank you very much, sir, for taking time out, you know, for joining us on that very crucial story. Just 10 minutes from now, that signing in ceremony will happen.
You know, before we do that, we are also joined by Major General Sudhakar ji. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. Your opening comments. In next 10 minutes, there is going to be a special briefing where Prime Minister and the Commissioner of EU will be present. There is going to be a special briefing by the Foreign Secretary at 4:30, given the importance of this visit. Your opening comments, sir.
It's a force multiplying golden milestone as far as India's economy is concerned. And it's a irreversible, progressive, forward-looking roadmap opening up India's way, and it will have a significant contribution towards India's long-term goal of $30 trillion by 2047 earlier.
Absolutely, absolutely. But sir, you know, when we were discussing about the issues, we also discussed about challenges. You know, before the briefing starts. You know, Ambassador Bhatia, you know, this question I kept it for you. You know, sir, I spoke about a number of issues. You know, in this Industrial Accelerator Act, which is expected to be proposed in January this year, is likely to introduce local content norms. Now, Shweta was talking about it. So, in terms of such nitty-gritties, you know, in terms of such nitty-gritties, how long do you think that India will take to be prepared to meet all these norms? Because in short run, I don't think it's possible, sir.
I think India has the adaptability to work its way around it. I don't think that is going to be such a major issue. As far as local content requirements are concerned, of course, we have to be very careful because of WTO rules. But there are ways in which measures can be designed to avoid violation of WTO rules. But I think it is important that for various strategic and security reasons that we develop key industries in India regardless of the cost involved. This is important for our security as well as in terms of supply chain resilience. We found during the COVID pandemic, for instance, how global supply chains were totally disrupted, and the global rules were helpless in resolving these issues. So we need to have our own capabilities in key sectors, and I think there are ways of doing it without being in conflict with global rules.
But sir, yes, I agree with you. But some countries have even filed cases on EU. For example, Indonesia, sir, you would recall that in context of EUDR, Indonesia has filed a case saying that EU has conducted regulatory imperialism with its new deforestation law. So I think there is also a pushback, sir.
There is a pushback, and I think there is a WTO dispute on this issue at the same time. So let's see where that goes.
Professor Baba, you were speaking about regulatory imperialism. You used the word. So I bring that again, the word regulatory imperialism. But this time in context of number of mechanisms which are in place. And I would like to quote one of the negotiators, Sangeeta Godbole, who was former revenue officer and EU trade deal negotiator. She says that 80% of India's exports attract less than 1% tariff without the trade deal. So there is a counter view that Indian goods will not gain significant market access when the FTA is signed. Is that correct?
I think, two things are there. One, let us look at the outcome document to see where exactly the actual, deal has been given to each side.
Okay.
One of the areas which has been accepted, for example, is automobiles, which Europe was pushing. And what we hear is there's a 40% cut. If I look at the Nifty, already it is sensitive to it. And, automobile share prices have gone down a little bit. So you can see the sensitivity which is there. And then we'll have to see, is it a across the board cut, or what we say is an implementation in a graded way with a number of years built in, protecting the industry and giving it time to adapt and, accept regulatory preferences. But as I've said earlier, also the EU does enforce a lot of stringent regulations which require industry to conform, either in terms of sourcing of what it has got, or raw material, or in terms of labeling, in terms of production. So these are various ways in which the EU can impose additional costs. And so one would have to see that our negotiators on the Indian side have actually been on top of the game. They would also be looking at all of these regulatory measures to see that we are not put at a disadvantage.
If you have a question, a very known Europe think tank has given the headline of this EU India deal called "Living with Friction." Shweta.
That's interesting, because I think that's what we're looking at. We're looking at friction all the way, and geopolitically, and I keep talking about, I think geopolitically, Sudhakarji, we're also in a world which is extremely fragmented. So if there's one signal that we are sending to the world out there by the way of this deal, and apart from all the trade understanding, all the understanding around economy, is that two of the biggest liberal blocs in the world are now coming together, and they're coming together to form a rules-based order of trade. So that's the signaling, and I think the signaling is also important by the way of all that's happening geopolitically, conversations around Greenland, Venezuela, and Trump's often changing diktats on tariffs.
Yeah, Shweta, well said, and thank you. I think you framed your question pretty well. I would say more military-like is black and white demonstration. On one side, you have a black demonstration which has lasted for so long, and perhaps in my understanding and articulation, I would put it in the perspective of India-EU agreement or FTA is not some kind, it is the kind of a white demonstration of rules-based international order, one. Number two, how diplomacy and dialogue can actually play the better of our relationship and be productive at the end of the day. And third and most important thing is geopolitical churn, which has been compounded by meaningless and irrational punitive taxation and tariff, which has never been beneficial to the superpower ever in the past of 200 years, has actually turned out to be a sort of unproductive course of action unleashed by the country against there are many countries in the world. So having said that, we need to understand, if time permits, if you allow me, I would like
Absolutely.
to say things. We need to understand that the European Union alone is not 27 countries. It's one of the biggest trading blocs. They have more than 66 countries. The ambassador will bear me out. He's done a fantastic job during his time. More than 66, 67 countries are actually latched on or connected to European Union. Going by the population matrix, you have 45 crores, but if you put Turkey and such like countries, Ukraine and Russia also to an extent, it goes beyond 75 crores. And if you look at the Europe as such, let's not ignore the EFTA. That agreement has been a remarkable golden milestone, and the agreement that with UK, these are going to give a turnaround and force multiply our high-end objective of making or securing the openings for labor-intensive market or labor-intensive products, which had taken a huge setback consequent to imposition of this 50% punitive tariff imposed by USA against India. That is one point. Second point I wish to highlight is that we should be very focused. How is it going to impact our national interests? What is it that is having an overbearing importance in the national economy? To me, if I have to answer this question, I'm looking at a target of 2 trillion US dollar export by 2030. As on today, going by the rough estimate is 857 billion 2025-26. That is the kind of export that we have reached so far. We are aiming at 2 trillion, but I am very ambitious and very optimistic about the way India is going. We'll cross 2 trillion by 2030, maybe by 5 trillions or so by 2035, and almost close to 10 trillion by 2040. That's the kind of market. But what is it which is central to India's self-reliance and Atmanirbhar Bharat? Unfortunately, if you look at the economic pie diagram of services sector, agriculture and manufacturing oblique industry, what stands out is that way back in 2014, we had aimed to achieve a pie of 25% in manufacturing by 2020. We are in 2026. Unfortunately, this manufacturing, which is actually the center of gravity of employment opportunities, addressing the youth bulge in our country significantly, also the ecosystem of I would say the startups that we have got 200,000 startups, third largest in the world. We have got 38,000 GPUs, the graphic processing units, and largest ever in the world are the GCCs. And the GCCs are actually going to attract multinational companies, which is happening. But the central point which needs to be focused and applied is how do you enhance the pie diagram percentage of our economic pie diagram and take it from 15.9%, unfortunately gone down from 16.7, which were there in 2014, to 15.9%. This is one aspect which India has to focus on. Only then the ecosystem of startup and also creating sub-components of major platforms can also pick up momentum in our country. For that, I think a new look has to be given. Maybe our co-panelists, who are very distinguished experts, they will be able to throw some light on this particular aspect. Back to you, please.
Okay, Dr. Bahal, I read these lines to you. If geopolitics exposes the limits of the EU-India convergence, defense and technology reveal where the relationship's capacity for adaptation is most visible. Your comments, sir.
Very nicely put. In a way, if you see the last few years itself, there have been a lot of noises coming or statements being made from the European nations when they're telling India that why are you not, imposing greater restrictions on what you buy from Russia, and why is your relationship with Russia so good, and why are you not pressurizing Russia to come up with an agreement on Ukraine? So when we look at how the mindset has changed, it is not like you rightly said, weaponization of tariffs or neo-colonialist policies followed by Trump or by China, but it is also that there is a great amount of realization today that the wealth of talent that exists in India and the wealth of talent that India exports to the European nations, US and other parts of the world, like I mentioned to you, 3.5 million, people are working in Europe today, who are from India. They are not Indian origin people. They are Indians who are working there. That is the great difference. So actually, the large number of Indians would be much more. The second part that comes is that it is not just, today that this realization has come after Greenland issue came up. If you see February last year, there was a big delegation from European Union. In September 2025, there was EU's Political and Security Committee, which visited India and met the Foreign Secretary, Deputy NSA, as well as Secretary West, essentially looking towards Europe. And then in December, we had Society of Indian Defense Manufacturers who visited Brussels to engage with the EU Commissioner. So what we are looking here is, A, realization that yes, India is a balancer towards a multilateral approach where strategic autonomy along with respect for other nations is going to play a major role in a rules-based order, like it was mentioned earlier, where India becomes part of those nations, like the Canadian Prime Minister had said, that there is a middle powers need to come together. I think India is actually getting above the middle powers with the fourth largest economy in the world. So we need to come together to bring in multilateralism and to come in together to bring in rules-based order. The second thing is defense and technology is going to play a major role in this. In fact, when we are looking at all the important agreements that are going to come out with this, besides the labor mobility, will be IT. You know, labor mobility may fix in IT, ITS services, or it second would be healthcare, and third would be engineering. These are the three focus areas in the deal. If it comes out, it would be great for cooperation and enhancing trade, wherein we are able to enhance the trade from current $142 billion to a figure which is over $300 billion by 2030. Last thing that I want to say is, in any case, there were 60 conflicts last year. Can you believe it? 60 conflicts last year all over the world. And this was mentioned by the army chief, the air chief, everywhere, as well as by the defense secretary in large number of seminars. So when there are going to be 60 conflicts, defense is going to play a major role. And defense budgets of number of nations, especially in Europe, after Trump's pressure have increased from 2%, and they are now coming to 5% in the next 10 years. Europe has suddenly realized that to protect themselves, they need to be strong themselves, and that is where they need India's manufacturing capability, India's talent, and that's where they need to diversify their defense production and imports from the West, that is US, and from China to India.
Okay, Professor Bhabha, if you look at the EU-India relationship, it's shaped by shared external pressures, constrained by differing threat perception and priority. So this asymmetry is structural and it is not temporary, and it defines the environment in which the partnership should operate. So can I say that though trade is an important aspect, it can no longer serve as a partnership's organizing center? Professor Bhabha.
Yes, I think one of the biggest outcomes of the 16th summit has been that the trade deal is concluded, and the EU and India are looking at this point forward to enhancing that kind of political attention to other arenas now. I think it was always
Prime Minister
said...
has arrived. Sorry, I need to interrupt you. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has arrived.
His Excellency Mr. Antonio Costa, President of the European Council, Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, Shri Narendra Modi, Prime Minister of the Republic of Bharat, Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I welcome you all to this ceremony where we shall witness exchange of several agreements and MOUs. These documents reflect the wide-ranging, multifaceted bilateral cooperation as part of the India-EU strategic partnership. We will begin with the signing and exchange of political declaration on conclusion of negotiations of the India-EU Free Trade Agreement. This document will be signed by His Excellency Mr. Maros Sefcovic, European Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security, and Shri Piyush Goyal, Minister of Commerce and Industry of India.
I think we can.
The next document to be signed is the India-EU Security and Defense Partnership. This document will be signed by Her Excellency Ms. Kaya Kallas, High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy and the Vice President of the European Commission, and Dr. S. Jaishankar, External Affairs Minister of India. We now have the signing of the Comprehensive Framework on Cooperation on Mobility. This document will be signed by His Excellency Mr. Maros Sefcovic, European Commissioner for Trade and Economic Security, and Dr. S. Jaishankar, External Affairs Minister of India. A few documents will now be exchanged. The Administrative Arrangement on Cooperation and Disaster Risk Management will be exchanged between His Excellency Mr. Hervé Delphin, EU Ambassador to India, and Shri Vikram Misri, Foreign Secretary of India. The agreement on constitution of a green hydrogen task force will be exchanged between His Excellency Mr. Hervé Delphin, EU Ambassador to India, and Shri C.B. George, Secretary West in the Ministry of External Affairs. Lastly, two documents, namely the MOU between the Reserve Bank of India and the European Securities and Market Authority, and the Administrative Arrangement on Advanced Electronic Seals and Signatures, will be exchanged between His Excellency Mr. Hervé Delphin, EU Ambassador to India, and Shri Saurabh Kumar, Ambassador of India in Brussels. Before I conclude this segment on exchange ceremony, I would also like to announce that India and the European Union have agreed on a strategy document titled Towards 2030, a Joint India-European Union Comprehensive Strategic Agenda. I now request the spokesperson of the Ministry of External Affairs to conduct the rest of the proceedings.
Good afternoon, His Excellency Mr. Antonio Costa, President of the European Council, and Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi, Honorable Ministers, members of both delegations, distinguished guests, and friends from the media. We will now have the press statements. May I request Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi to give his remarks to the media.
Your Excellencies, President Antonio Costa, our President Ursula von der Leyen, दोनों देशों के डेलीगेट्स, मीडिया के साथियों, नमस्कार। अपने दो करीबी मित्रों प्रेसिडेंट कोस्टा और प्रेसिडेंट फॉन डेर लायन का इस अभूतपूर्व भारत यात्रा में स्वागत करते हुए मुझे बहुत खुशी हो रही है। कोस्टा जी अपनी सरल जीवन शैली और समाज के प्रति प्रेम के आधार पर लिस्बन के गांधी के नाम से जाने जाते हैं और उर्सुला जी जर्मनी की पहली महिला रक्षा मंत्री नहीं, यूरोपियन यूनियन कमीशन की भी पहली महिला प्रेसिडेंट बनकर पूरी दुनिया के लिए एक प्रेरणा है। कल एक ऐतिहासिक क्षण था जब पहली बार यूरोपियन यूनियन के लीडर्स भारत के गणतंत्र दिवस समारोह में मुख्य अतिथि के रूप में शामिल हुए। आज एक और ऐतिहासिक अवसर है जब विश्व की दो सबसे बड़ी लोकतांत्रिक शक्तियां अपने संबंधों में एक निर्णायक अध्याय जोड़ रही है। फ्रेंड्स, पिछले कुछ वर्षों में भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन के संबंधों में उल्लेखनीय प्रगति हुई है। साझा लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों, आर्थिक सिनर्जी और मजबूत पीपल टू पीपल टाइज के आधार पर हमारी साझेदारी नई ऊंचाइयों तक पहुंच रही है। आज हमारे बीच 180 बिलियन यूरो का ट्रेड है। 8 लाख से अधिक भारतीय यूरोपियन यूनियन के देशों में रह रहे हैं और सक्रिय योगदान दे रहे हैं। हमने स्ट्रेटेजिक टेक्नोलॉजी से लेकर क्लीन एनर्जी, डिजिटल गवर्नेंस से लेकर डेवलपमेंट पार्टनरशिप, हर क्षेत्र में सहयोग के नए आयाम स्थापित किए हैं। इन्हीं उपलब्धियों के आधार पर आज की समिट में हमने समाज के सभी वर्गों को लाभ पहुंचाने वाले कई निर्णय लिए हैं। फ्रेंड्स, आज भारत ने अपने इतिहास का अब तक का सबसे बड़ा फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट संपन्न किया है। आज 27 तारीख है। ये सुखद संयोग है कि आज ही के दिन यूरोपियन यूनियन के 27 देशों के साथ भारत ये एफटीए कर रहा है। यह एक ऐतिहासिक समझौता हमारे किसानों, हमारे छोटे उद्योगों, इसके यूरोपियन मार्केट तक पहुंच आसान बनाएगा, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में नए अवसर पैदा करेगा और हमारे सर्विसेज सेक्टर के बीच सहयोग को और प्रबल करेगा। इतना ही नहीं, यह एफटीए भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन के बीच इन्वेस्टमेंट को बूस्ट करेगा, नई इनोवेशन पार्टनरशिप बनाएगा और वैश्विक स्तर पर सप्लाई चेन को मजबूत करेगा। यानी यह सिर्फ ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट नहीं है, यह साझा समृद्धि का नया ब्लूप्रिंट है। फ्रेंड्स, इस महत्वाकांक्षी एफटीए के साथ साथ हम मोबिलिटी के लिए भी एक नया फ्रेमवर्क बना रहे हैं। इससे भारत के स्टूडेंट्स, वर्कर्स और प्रोफेशनल्स के लिए यूरोपियन यूनियन में नए अवसर खुलेंगे। साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी में हमारा लंबे समय से एक व्यापक सहयोग रहा है। आज हमने इन महत्वपूर्ण लिंकेजेस को भी और मजबूत करने का निर्णय लिया है। फ्रेंड्स, रक्षा और सुरक्षा सहयोग किसी भी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप की नींव होती है और आज हम इसे सिक्योरिटी एंड डिफेंस पार्टनरशिप के जरिए औपचारिक रूप दे रहे हैं। इससे काउंटर टेररिज्म, मैरीटाइम और साइबर सिक्योरिटी में हमारी साझेदारी और गहरी होगी। यह रूल्स बेस्ड इंटरनेशनल ऑर्डर के प्रति हमारी साझा प्रतिबद्धता को भी बल देगा। इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र में हमारे सहयोग का दायरा और बढ़ेगा और इसके साथ हमारी डिफेंस कंपनियां को डेवलपमेंट और को प्रोडक्शन के नए अवसर साकार करेगी। फ्रेंड्स, आज की इन उपलब्धियों के आधार पर हम अगले 5 वर्ष के लिए एक और भी एम्बिशियस और होलिस्टिक स्ट्रेटेजिक एजेंडा लॉन्च कर रहे हैं। एक जटिल वैश्विक वातावरण में ये एजेंडा स्पष्ट दिशा देगा, हमारी साझा समृद्धि को आगे बढ़ाएगा, इनोवेशन को गति देगा, सुरक्षा सहयोग और सुदृढ़ करेगा और पीपल टू पीपल टाइज को और गहरा करेगा। फ्रेंड, भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन का सहयोग एक पार्टनरशिप फॉर ग्लोबल गुड है। हम इंडो पैसिफिक से लेकर कैरेबियन तक ट्राइलेटरल प्रोजेक्ट को विस्तार देंगे। इससे सस्टेनेबल एग्रीकल्चर, क्लीन एनर्जी और विमेन एम्पावरमेंट को ठोस समर्थन मिलेगा। हम साथ मिलकर आईमैक कॉरिडोर को ग्लोबल ट्रेड और सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट की एक प्रमुख कड़ी के रूप में स्थापित करेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, आज ग्लोबल ऑर्डर में बड़ी उथल-पुथल है। ऐसे में भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन की साझेदारी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सिस्टम में स्थिरता को मजबूती देगी। इस संदर्भ में आज हमने यूक्रेन, पश्चिमी एशिया, इंडो पैसिफिक सहित कई वैश्विक मुद्दों पर विस्तार से चर्चा की। मल्टीलेटरलिज्म और इंटरनेशनल नॉर्म्स का सम्मान हमारी साझी प्राथमिकता है। हम एकमत है कि आज के चैलेंजेस का समाधान करने के लिए ग्लोबल इंस्टीट्यूशंस का रिफॉर्म अनिवार्य है। फ्रेंड्स, राष्ट्रों के संबंधों में कभी-कभी ऐसा क्षण आता है जब इतिहास स्वयं कहता है, यहीं से दिशा बदली, यहीं से एक नया युग शुरू हुआ। भारत की और यूरोपियन यूनियन की यह ऐतिहासिक समिट वही क्षण है। मैं एक बार फिर इस अभूतपूर्व यात्रा के लिए, भारत के प्रति आपकी मित्रता के लिए और हमारे साझा भविष्य के प्रति आपकी प्रतिबद्धता के लिए प्रेसिडेंट कोस्टा और प्रेसिडेंट फॉन डर लायन का हार्दिक धन्यवाद करता हूं। थैंक यू।
Thank you, sir. Request His Excellency Mr. Antonio Costa, President of the European Council, to give his remarks to the media.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi, my dear friends, dear Ursula, Ministers, dear Kaya and Maros, good afternoon. Thank you, dear Prime Minister Modi, for welcoming us on this special occasion. We were privileged yesterday to be your chief guests for the Republic Day celebrations. Such an impressive display of India's capabilities and diversity. Today is a historic moment. We are opening a new chapter in our relations on trade, on security, on people-to-people ties. I'm the president of the European Council, but I'm also an overseas Indian citizen. Then, as you can imagine, for me, it has a special meaning. I'm very proud of my roots in Goa, where my father's family came from. And the connection between Europe and India is something personal to me. Also because we conclude today our trade negotiations. We relaunched at the latest meeting that I had the pleasure to host in May 2021 in my previous capacity. Our summit sends a clear message to the world. At a time when the global order is being fundamentally reshaped, the European Union and India stand together as a strategic and reliable partners. Today, we are taking our partnership to the next level. As the two largest democracies in the world, we are working hand in hand to deliver concrete benefits for our citizens and to shape a resilient global order that underpins peace and stability, economic growth, and sustainable development. I would like to share three messages. First, the European Union and India must work together towards our shared prosperity and security. India is the world's fastest growing major economy. Trade has flowed between our two continents for centuries. And trade is a crucial geopolitical stabilizer and the fundamental source of economic growth. Trade agreements reinforce rules-based economic order and promote shared prosperity. That's why today's free trade agreement is of historic importance, one of the most ambitious agreements ever concluded, creating a market of 2 billion people. In a multipolar world, the European Union and India are working together to grow spheres of shared prosperity. But prosperity does not exist without security. Strengthen our cooperation to better protect our citizens and our shared interests. Working together to counter the full range of security threats we face in the Indo-Pacific, in Europe, and around the world, reaching a new level of strategic trust between us. That is the significance of our agreement on a security and defense partnership. The first such overarching defense and security framework between India and the European Union, and the first step towards even more ambitious cooperation in the future. This brings me to my second message. As the world's largest democracies and champions of multilateralism, the European Union and India share the responsibility to upholding the international law with the United Nations Charter at its core. Earlier this morning, we and Ursula, and President Ursula, had the opportunity to pay tribute to Mahatma Gandhi. And I reflected upon his words, which still holds true today, and I quoted, "Peace will not come out of a clash of arms, but out of justice lived and done by unarmed nations in the face of odds." Our summit reaffirmed our commitment to supporting efforts towards a comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine. one that fully respects Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. This is a key moment. We are supporting all efforts to reach a just and sustainable peace. Ukraine has shown its readiness, including at the cost of difficult compromise. I know, Prime Minister, that we can count on you to help creating conditions for peace through dialogue and diplomacy. And this is my final message. Together, we must show leadership on global issues. Cooperation between the European Union and India will help shape a more balanced, resilient, and inclusive global order. Just two examples. I'm proud of the commitments we are making for greater cooperation on clean energy, green transition, and climate resilience. And our collaboration through the Global Gateway and on the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor is decisive for global connectivity. By implementing the ambitious Joint Comprehensive Strategic Agenda towards 2030, we will align our priorities with concrete actions for the next 5 years, delivering real benefits to our citizens. Today, we have tangible progress and set an example of cooperative leadership on global issues. With our free trade agreement, our security and defense partnership, and our joint strategic agenda. These outcomes are crucial milestones on the longer path. We look forward to continuing the journey together, as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, to give her remarks to the media.
Dear Prime Minister Modi, distinguished friend, Antonio, my friend, ministers, especially Shankar and Guyal, Vice President Kallas, Commissioner Šefčovič, Excellencies, friends, thank you very much for the exceptional hospitality we experienced. It was such an honor for us to be your chief guests at the Republic Day yesterday. This is a memory I will carry for a lifetime because the sense of communion was so powerful. People filled the streets united in pride and joy of belonging to the Indian nation, and rightfully so. India has risen, and Europe is truly glad about it, because when India succeeds, the world is more stable, more prosperous, and more secure, and we all benefit. Prime Minister Modi, dear friend, 1 year ago, the full College of Commissioners came to India. You mentioned it. And this is also a very special memory for me. It showed the seriousness of our intent and the strength of our commitment. Today, we reap the fruits of that commitment with our historic summit. And let me start with trade. Prime Minister, distinguished friend, we did it. We delivered the mother of all deals. We are creating a market of 2 billion people. And this is the tale of two giants, the world's second and fourth largest economies. Two giants who choose partnership in a true win-win fashion. A strong message that cooperation is the best answer to global challenges. This trade will integrate further our supply chain and strengthen our joint manufacturing power. It will cut up to 4 billion euros in annual tariffs for exporters of all sizes. And it will create good jobs for millions of workers. here in India and in Europe. At the same time, this agreement will build on the natural complementarity of our economies. It brings together Indian skills, services, and scale with Europe's technology, capital, and innovation. It will create levels of growth that neither side can achieve alone. And by combining these strengths, we reduce strategic dependencies at a time when trade is increasingly weaponized. We will discuss this and more at our first EU-India Business Forum later today. I want to offer a special word of thanks to the people who worked so hard to make this day a reality. Starting with the European Union's Trade Commissioner Maroš Šefčovič and his counterpart, India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal. You have done an outstanding work. This is historic, and it would not have been possible without you. I also want to pay tribute to their colleagues, Sabine Weyand and Secretary Rajesh Agrawal. Many others made vital contributions. I congratulate you all. The hard work was worth it. Prime Minister, distinguished friend, we're not only making our economy stronger, we're also delivering security for our people in an increasingly insecure world. And today, the world's two largest economies and democracies launch their first ever security and defense partnership. This is a landmark departure and a trust-based platform for cooperation on the strategic issues that matter most. In doing so, we will help to build each other's resilience. Europe and India have a long history of cooperation in the defense industry. Now we will enhance this teamwork even further. We will deepen our cooperation on maritime security, for example, joint naval exercises to tackle piracy. And we will step up our work on countering cyber and hybrid threats, which are getting more sophisticated by the day. And our partnership includes a dedicated dialogue on space security, from situational awareness to secure connectivity, and stronger cooperation on counterterrorism. Finally, we are launching negotiations on a security of information agreement. Europe and India have chosen to be reliable partners to one another, and this is how we demonstrate the trust we share. Prime Minister Modi, distinguished friend, I want to turn to innovation, because here too we share core values. The freedom of research and science is paramount for us. Europe and India will always choose science. We will always choose progress, the way forward. We will always choose technology at the service of our people. It's part of who we are. And our cooperation on human-centric, trustworthy artificial intelligence is one of the best examples. So today I'm glad to announce that we are working on India's association with Horizon Europe. Backed by funding firepower of 100 billion euros, Horizon is the world's largest public research program. And I can't wait for our best talents to get to work to advance health, clean energy, frontier technologies, just to name some. We will set up EU-India innovation hubs. This will help researchers and startups to collaborate on next-generation technology. And we are also launching the EU-India Startup Partnership to boost co-creation and high-potential ventures. Finally, Prime Minister dear Narendra, we both know our greatest wealth are our people. That is why I'm so glad that we are signing an agreement on mobility. We will facilitate the movement of students, researchers, seasonal and highly skilled workers. And this is also why we are launching the first EU Legal Gateway Office in India. It will be a one-stop hub to support Indian talent moving to Europe in full alignment with EU member states' needs and policies. This is good for our economies. This is good for the friendship between our people. And this openness benefits us all. As we conclude this 16th summit, let me reflect on another event of deep meaning. 2 weeks ago, India marked Makar Sankranti. It's the beginning of Uttarayan, the sun's northward journey. From darkness to light, from stillness to growth, from what was to what can be. And that is what makes our summit so unique and timely. The time is right for renewal, for fresh momentum, and for opening a new chapter in EU-India friendship. And this is exactly what we have achieved together today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we conclude the press statements. Thank you very much for your presence.
A very important, I would say, piece of agreement has concluded between European Union and India. On this issue, I'm joined by Ambassador Veena Sikri and General Rajan Kochar. Ambassador Sikri, you must have heard EU Commissioner, then you must have heard the Prime Minister. I think more than the trade, I think it was getting vectored, the relationship was getting vectored in a different language, and Ambassador Dasgupta is also there. Thank you. So your opening comments, I'm not going to get into the chemistry or the warmth, but I think it's more than trade. As a journalist, I think it's more than trade. There's there's much beyond trade. That's on the table.
It's the signaling.
Ambassador Sikri.
Well, I fully agree with you. I think this is definitely much more than trade. I think this is really the start of a new era in Indo-EU relationship. You know, for decades now, the Indians and the Europeans have been trying. You know, as we know, even to negotiate this deal has taken about 2 decades. It was off in 2013, but then it restarted in 2022 under Prime Minister Modi's leadership. So I think the vision of reaching out to Europe as a pole of the world's development, security, and all other aspects, this has been a vision of Prime Minister Modi, and I think that he has fulfilled it very well. We've seen the remarkable work that has gone into it. I'm talking not just of the trade deal. It also includes defense and security. It also includes a startup hub. It also includes a technology hub, and it includes the mobility hub. You know, the EU is opening its gateway office in India to help Indians who want to go to the EU for work or study or research, and it's going to help them to do that. So I think this is most timely. Just yesterday, we saw an announcement that the H-1B visas are going to be postponed to 2027. So for this whole 1 year of 2026, there's not going to be a single H-1B visa that will be stamped. And just at that moment, we have this, the decision today, the announcement of the deal, all the decisions that have been announced by both the governments and the mobility deal. So you are going to see that this is going to be the start of a new era. I must tell you that I have done an assignment in France for about 4 years. I was the minister in charge of economic affairs there. And I always felt, even at that time, that was just at the dawn of our economic reform, soon after 1991. And I always felt that countries like France and the European Union, they have exactly the technology that India needs, the medium technology that we need to benefit our farmers, to benefit our agricultural sector. And at one level, they have that. And at the other level, they have the very high-tech defense achievements and defense technology products that are also very valuable to India. So this aspect of the European technology, the focus on agriculture, on rural India, which is very important, and the relevance of what Europe has developed for them, because they also have small farmers. They don't have this, multi 1,000-acre plots of land that US farmers have. They have much smaller plots of land, very similar to the problems that India has with smaller plots. And that is why their technology is so relevant. So I think this comprehensive approach to the India-EU partnership, ranging from defense and security up to trade, which is, of course, as they say, the mother of all deals, because it is so comprehensive, is going to open up the Indian market to automobiles from Europe, but only automobiles above a certain value. So it's not going to inundate the Indian market with automobile products from Europe, but the high-end ones. And it's also going to allow Indian exports to the European Union, which will be much more than replacing the goods that have come under tariff from the United States. So I think not only the timing, but the value of what has been agreed upon, as EU Commissioner Ursula von der Leyen said, it's the TCI, the technology of Europe, the capital of Europe, and the innovation of Europe. And certainly I can see from my own experience that they have tremendous innovation in all sectors. We've already seen in defense sectors, we've got a lot from Europe. We are working on even more from Europe. But the European Union taking this on a pan-EU level rather than the individual strategic partnership that we already have, will take this to another new level, because we are opening up many more markets. And I think that the hard work that has gone into it is truly remarkable, because it was always an on, is it not on kind of a approach, but her summing up that we did it. That is really something that both India and EU, Prime Minister Modi and the leadership of the European Union, with all the other ministers who have contributed to this, has really been tremendous. We saw it yesterday that at the Republic Day parade, and Ursula von der Leyen, she said this is an honor of a lifetime. She'd never been honored like this. She'd never seen a parade like this. Of course, she herself wore a beautiful Indian outfit, which was very very much welcomed by all the Indian viewers, millions of Indian viewers. So I think all in all, this is the start of a strong era, but we have to implement it very effectively and correctly.
Okay. Ambassador Dasgupta, EU-India relationship is shaped by shared external pressures. We have different threat perception priorities, but the external circumstances are same. They are not temporary, they are structural. How strong is that impulse for forging this relationship?
I must say that the Trump tariff and the pronouncements, various kinds of pronouncements, ending with, of course, the desire to occupy Greenland, whether NATO likes it or not, the rest of the European part of NATO likes it or not. That, I think, would have given an added push. And of course, the rise of China and the kind of dominance that it is having in manufactured products, in technology, in cyberspace, that it would have been motivating factors for the EU. But I think above all, it is the business interest. It is the interest to have mutually beneficial relationships through not only trade, but investment, through mobility and migration, and cooperation in science and technology. All of these would have been motivating factors. The final thing I must say is that there has been some talk of why it got stalled in 2013 and then resumed in 2022 and could be concluded. I think there has been a tempering of the ambition of both sides. The EU has withdrawn from its earlier hard stance on many issues, and the Indians have also, I think, matched their gestures by tempering down their ambition levels to something which is lower and pragmatic and achievable. So there have been compromises on both sides. Dairy and agriculture products is one area, but giving in on the EU's desire to have lower tariffs on automobiles. Of course, again, we have put a kind of a threshold beyond which only it would be applicable. On wines and spirits, we have done something for them, but we have already done so for New Zealand and Australia and Chile earlier. So it is of a piece with what we have done, but perhaps we have gone one step further. So there have been compromises on both sides, and this perception of the common threats, whether it is the American threats or the Chinese advances in not only trade but in all areas of science, technology, cyberspace, all those would have, I think, motivated the Europeans as well as the Indians, I think, to move forward and seal the deal.
Okay, I'm also joined by Professor Manoj Pant, visiting professor, Shiv Nadar University and former Vice Chancellor, IIFT. Thank you so much, sir, for joining me. Sir, your opening comments on very warm introduction given by all three dignitaries today. But to frame my conversation with you, as I had asked, that external pressures are very key when it comes to this relationship. But the point to be noted was that Ukraine was allowed to be mentioned in length at Hyderabad House. It did not go unnoticed. They put it on record, the Ukrainian issue. How do you see that?
Well, it's something that we have also discussed earlier. India and EU have been actually doing some cooperation as far as Ukraine is concerned, but it's come out more explicitly. I think it's a good thing. Ultimately, except for one or two countries, there's no one who doesn't agree. It's time to end the stalemate in Ukraine. So it's good as emerged as part of a deal between the two countries.
Okay, but do you think that it's going to have a ramification, a sort of a longer, sort of like a stumbling block?
I don't think so. After all, don't forget, even the Americans are keen to have an end to the Ukraine thing, right? He's also stuck. He's neither moving up or down. No, I don't think so. After all, they have been, the Americans have been, after the India do something or Ukraine do something, not that India can do very much by itself. So I don't think that's true. I think the fact that India and the EU are agreeing together to work on bringing a joint thing on Ukraine is a good thing, but I don't think it's something which is a hindrance to other developments.
Ambassador Sikri, your view on it?
Well, I think it can work both ways, because I do think that right now, after the huge, terrible situation of the Ukraine crisis for so many years, I think one sees now a glimmer of interest among the European leaders in somehow rekindling their approach to Russia. So far they've been full of this anti-Russianism, and as though Russia is not even in Europe, as though there's no past to the cooperation between Europe and Russia. It got a very strong past. They had a huge chapter on cooperation in security in Europe. And then Europe was then the whole...
I think Ambassador Sikri, the line froze.
Oh, my line, am I audible
now? You're audible. Yeah, now you're audible.
Yeah. Okay, so I was saying that there's a glimmer of a hope of rapprochement between Europe, Western Europe and Russia. All these years of the Ukraine crisis, they have just tried to, really work themselves up on anti-Russianism, and even the Germans condoned the blasting of that pipeline, Nord Stream 2, all that. But now I think they've realized that they need to have a rapprochement with Europe, and I think this mention of Ukraine would have been also for our own policy of strategic autonomy and relationship with Russia, would certainly have also been fully explained to the European Union leaders, and based on this common understanding, we will be able to go forward well. I agree that there will not be much impact of this. This has already been factored in.
It has been impacted. Ambassador Dasgupta, though those details were not there, I think they will come at the 4:30 when Foreign Secretary will hold the press conference, because we have been told there's going to be a meeting of the business chambers, and subsequently at 4:30 Vikram Misri is going to hold the press conference where the details would be shared with the press. But a lot of people say that despite all this, there is sort of EU gets accused of regulatory imperialism, sir. And there are a lot of issues like, for example, deforestation, or for example, the carbon tax which comes into operation from 1st of January. All those issues, Ambassador Dasgupta, it makes our MSMEs and SMEs very, very vulnerable. Though, those things remain the same.
I agree there. That is, Ambassador Sikri would also agree with me. That is the way the EU functions. It functions through regulations which are extremely detailed, take years to work out, and then, of course, very difficult to navigate through. And
like EU deforestation regulations, sir, Indonesia has gone to court. Yeah, they have used the word regulatory imperialism.
That's right. But, even before this, there was this REACH, REACH on chemicals exports, and all kinds of data had to be produced. CBAM is another example where each individual steel producer or aluminium producer will have to give a whole, truckloads of data. So it is true, that is the way the EU functions, unfortunately, but that is something which is built into their whole psyche because of the fact that they have to get so many disparate systems and countries together and have a common set of regulations. So we will have to accept that. And of course, we would try to place our points of view on various issues and get the best deal possible. But having said that, I think the EU has also been mentioning that there are many non-tariff barriers which have been faced by EU exporters to India. So I think it cuts both ways. That regulations will have to be, removed if they are barriers to trade for both sides, and that can be done, I think, bilaterally also to a certain extent.
Okay, Professor Pant, people will talk about trade, people will talk about these issues, but how strong or how important is the component of AI technology in defense in this architecture, sir?
Defense, yes, very, very important because nowadays defense deals, have ramifications not only in defense sector, but in non-defense sector like, parts for automobiles. So, with Airbus and Boeing competition going on, I think that's where India could gain. We already make a lot of parts for the Boeing. So maybe you can have something going for the Airbus too. So certainly that is very important in terms of domestic technology reports. Now on the AI, I'm not too certain what exactly this particular deal will do. I read about the REACH. Let's see what the details are as to what exactly is going to be, because essentially what's going to happen is many countries are now looking to come to India for AI, for developing the AI programs, because India has got huge uncertainties, huge number of people, so very good learning for AI algorithms. Now, I don't know how far the details have been worked out, I can't say at this time. But certainly, if you're being part of technology agreement, you can't leave out an AI aspect.
Ambassador Sikri, as I said, the external constraints are more important than the internal one or the ones which used to be talked about like shared values, democracy, culture. External constraints have become more important. Do you think that the dynamics of the treaty will stay in case the external constraints disappear? Right now, Europe wants to rearm itself. They are raising their defense budget. It suits us, We don't just want to be treated like a market, We also want to export, create manufacturing spine and all that. But it takes time. But do you think that if the external constraints say disappear, a lot of people who come in this show say that, well, wait for another year. Let's see if, if Trump becomes a lame duck president, the things might change. Do you think that this entire thing will remain the same? The deal, the mother of all deals.
Yeah. No, I think to a certain extent, what has happened between EU and America over Greenland, for example, this is as much as a shock to the EU as, say, what the example between India and USA over the tariffs and, putting that extra 25% on India when they haven't put it on China and the European Union and Turkey and so on. So I think the element of trust, which was there between EU and America, which was there between India and USA, this has been shaken. Now, trust is an element which there was an old saying that you try to restore it, but the crack is always there. I mean, that fact that the trust was broken at one time, will you retrust? So I think both EU and India, in that sense, will have to go through this phase of rebuilding their trust with USA. I mean, for example, after what President Trump said on Greenland at the Davos World Economic Forum, the EU decided to break their trade deal with America. They actually took that very strong decision, and for them, that was a very strong, is a very strong decision. So this element of doubt about what America's intentions are will remain for some time. In the meanwhile, it is up to us. It is up to us to benefit, to do the implementation in such a way that we are able to have a long-term benefit, a visible benefit on both sides, a mutual benefit. It cannot be only one way. And the second thing I think we have to do is that to counter these decades of, European Union talking about human rights and what's happening in India, they still do. I mean, this bureaucracy in Brussels is still intact, and they're like, a kind of a disemboweled bureaucracy. They're like from all over and a kind of. So we have to reach out and explain what India is all about. This soft power projection has to be a very important element of our reaching out, not only to the EU, but to individual European Union countries as well. So that the younger generation, the Gen Z, which plays a very important role, will understand what India is really about. And let me give you one example of this, where look at all the excellent institutes of learning in across the European Union. How many of them have courses on India? Very few. So actually, whether it's a business school or another school, the graduates don't really come out knowing much about India. So they don't think about India as a business destination for their entrepreneurial activities because they don't know enough. So we have to work and rectify that. And I think this mobility agreement will do a lot because Indian scientists working in European research laboratories and, displaying, the question of translation also here because the language is different in many different European countries. So this also, we have to learn to do all this, to reach out. It's very easy in USA because the language is the same and everything is okay, no problem of translation. But this is a new area. It will benefit us enormously if we do these 2 or 3 things regularly right from now, even before the deal comes into force.
Absolutely, madam. But when we talk about these deals in the normal parlance, the people say, what will become cheaper? Will the cars become cheaper? Will European booze become cheaper? These are the issues on which the conversation comes down to. But Ambassador Dasgupta, I have one specific question, and it's not my line. I wrote it down because I read it somewhere. Tell me if it is correct. It says that the economic relationship needs to be built around economic security domain, rather than a single grand bargain between EU and India. Is it a correct position?
I tend to agree with that statement because, it can't be just a one-off kind of a thing that, all right, let us have things to do with technology. But on migration and mobility, we will shut our eyes. We will not have any agreement. It will have to be based on mutual benefits, based on the aspirations of both sides, and a vision, shared vision for the future. Now, the EU, for instance, on migration and mobility, it realizes that it has, almost a steady population or a declining population in some countries. It has, moreover, a shortage of highly skilled professionals. For instance, in Germany, there is a shortage of attendants for healthcare, doctors also in some countries, so and nurses. We have been sending nurses to many of the European countries for ages now. So these are some of the things. Of course, in software, in AI, we have a large pool of manpower, and they require these kind of skills. We have them. So it will have to be a mutually beneficial kind of a relationship. So it can't be just on one sector, one area, and then you shut the door on other areas where the other side may be interested. We'll have to find out what is the kind of an optimum solution.
Ambassador, another point which I noted, the line was New Delhi's economic strategy is not simply about growth, but upgrading. Initiatives such as Make in India, the government's flagship manufacturing program, and production-linked incentives are not negotiating positions. They are sovereignty tools. Now, the EU, by contrast, continues to approach economic partnership primarily through rules, standards, and comprehensive frameworks. European policymakers often treat the FTA as a natural center of gravity. Indian policymakers treat it as one instrument among many. Your comments, sir?
I think after the independence, first we had to find the capital to set up a few basic industries. Pharmaceuticals was one, heavy engineering was another one, which could produce the capital goods to set up the industry. So all these things were there at different points of time in our evolution. Now is the time when we don't just want to be buyers of foreign technology. We want to develop them ourselves. And we want to have, if we are going to buy fighter jets, for instance, we want to have a share of the technology and have co-production. So that is the kind of aspiration which has changed now over the last 8 decades. And that is why we would like to leverage our own strengths. PLI scheme, for instance, it is aimed at strengthening the base of the Indian industrial sector through technology transfers, acquisition of technology, and to provide them, incentivize them. Every country has incentivized. Do you think the Europeans are not incentivizing semiconductor technology, or the Americans are not? They are doing it all the time. And so cutting edge technology will have to be incentivized. The Chinese are also doing it for that matter. And in the face of all this, if India sits tight and says that, no, we will not do it, that is not going to work. So it is a question of self-sufficiency, of Atmanirbharta, of empowering our own people with the infrastructure, with the technology, with the wherewithal to move forward and give a better life to the people in the present times and in the future.
Professor Pant, it's being argued that this deal is going to create a buffer, but does it mean that if we leave our issues with America unaddressed, we can create, we can do without American market? If we can
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
It needs to be addressed at any cost.
Let's be very clear. Almost 80% of foreign investment in software is in the US. So those links with India, US have come over the last 40 years are not going to disappear because of one agreement. I think most important from EU point, don't even think about that. It's not a competing thing, it's a new relationship.
These are, I just want to bring this conversation to a level where, people understand. मतलब जब सुबह बाहर जाते हैं तो लोग बोलते हुए सुना, अरे ये डील हो जाएगी तो अब उनको दिखा देंगे, उनकी ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी. But, we can't dismiss it because that's how people perceive it, And foreign policy is being, in last 20 years, being consumed in a far greater and a deeper way even than your domestic politics. That's a fundamental change I have also witnessed in my own career.
Media make a mistake, they try to make that point. But this is more important. Let's come back to the EU thing. I don't think there's a substitute for the US thing.
Okay.
For the EU, I don't think there's a substitute. Let's face it, EU's biggest interests are in China. And one good thing I think is at this point in time, India starts thinking of some kind of deal trade deal with the Chinese, not a bad deal at all. So I think that's a good way to go. So don't think of it as a supplemental. Don't think of it as a substitute agreement. It's a supplemental agreement. And most important, Indo-EU agreements are not going to go anywhere till they improve institution-to-institution links. For example, I think someone mentioned there's no university linkages, nothing at all between Indo and EU. There are one or two institutions that work mainly because the education system is somewhat different from the Indian education system. So how do we collaborate in areas like education? How do we collaborate on people-to-people exchange is possibly going to be more important than just these few issues that we have discussed. But certainly, it's not a substitute at all.
Master Sikri, I need your closing comment before I close the show. As Professor Pant said, supplementary, not a substitute.
Of course.
I think that, the question of doing these kind of FTAs and, multi-sectoral agreements that we have signed with the EU, they can never supplement or transplant anything. This is a part of India's strategic autonomy, that we do everything in its own space. for mutual interest between India and the EU in this case, and mutual benefit between India and the EU in this case. We're not trying to supplant anything. We're not trying to replace anything. It's difficult to do that because there are interests in other areas which we know will come up at some time or the other, whether it is, there are some critical emerging technologies in the US, we have ICET there, we have other things with the EU. I told you for agriculture, I think the European Union is much more relevant in terms of the middle level technology that they need. So everything has to be in its own place. And this is the beauty of India's strategic autonomy. And we've been able to really manage it so far. There's nothing today that can cause the Americans to say something against India on this deal. Although I believe there's a lot of nervousness and anxiety there about it. But nothing that they can say
Commerce
about.
Secretary said, Madam, this is a bad thing which EU is doing. They are ending up financing Russia's war against Ukraine by signing this deal with India. They said it. The guy just said it 24 hours back.
But that's the whole thing. The EU is also been after America to do more anti-Russian things, but they've realized that. They've realized that that's not going to work. So they too are repairing their relationship with Russia. So the churn in the global order, the churn in relationships, this is the constant. There is no other constant right now. And India is doing very well by maintaining its strategic autonomy and talking to everybody on the respective areas of interest with that group or that country or group of countries, in this case, the EU. So I think, again, the implementation is going to be very vital and quick implementation, taking up the quick benefits so that our people will realize that this is valuable.
Okay, thank you so much. Before I close the show, let me play out the bite. Let me play out the bite of the Prime Minister when he announced this deal. And thank you all of you for joining me on this show. Let me end this show with the Prime Minister's bite.
एक ऐतिहासिक क्षण था जब पहली बार यूरोपियन यूनियन के लीडर्स भारत के गणतंत्र दिवस समारोह में मुख्य अतिथि के रूप में शामिल हुए। आज एक और ऐतिहासिक अवसर है जब विश्व की दो सबसे बड़ी लोकतांत्रिक शक्तियां अपने संबंधों में एक निर्णायक अध्याय जोड़ रही है। फ्रेंड्स, पिछले कुछ वर्षों में भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन के संबंधों में उल्लेखनीय प्रगति हुई है। साझा लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों, आर्थिक सिनर्जी और मजबूत पीपल टू पीपल टाइज के आधार पर हमारी साझेदारी नई ऊंचाइयों तक पहुंच रही है। आज हमारे बीच 180 बिलियन यूरो का ट्रेड है। 8 लाख से अधिक भारतीय यूरोपियन यूनियन के देशों में रह रहे हैं और सक्रिय योगदान दे रहे हैं। हमने स्ट्रेटेजिक टेक्नोलॉजी से लेकर क्लीन एनर्जी, डिजिटल गवर्नेंस से लेकर डेवलपमेंट पार्टनरशिप, हर क्षेत्र में सहयोग के नए आयाम स्थापित किए हैं। इन्हीं उपलब्धियों के आधार पर आज की समिट में हमने समाज के सभी वर्गों को लाभ पहुंचाने वाले कई निर्णय लिए हैं। फ्रेंड्स, आज भारत ने अपने इतिहास का अब तक का सबसे बड़ा फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट संपन्न किया है।
घर है वही जहाँ सब संग हो, रिश्तों को रंग दो, दुनिया को रंग दो।
Birla Opus Paints.
This isn't a trail of peace. This is pressure overload. A hill built for 1,000 forced to carry lakhs.
Instead of lightening the footprint, you have allowed people to actually get into every nook and corner of the Himalayas.
Careless travel, choking hills. If we don't change now, there won't be much left to enjoy.
We need to follow the Bhutan model, regulate people who can access hills.
News9 presents Heal the Hills, continuous coverage. Taxes, jobs, housing, electric vehicles, defense. News9 decodes the numbers behind the noise. You define India's growth story. We decode what's in it for you. Budget 2026. No noise, no confusion. A budget for a bulletproof Bharat.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
Your Excellencies, President Antonio Costa, our President Ursula von der Leyen, दोनों देशों के डेलीगेट्स, मीडिया के साथियों, नमस्कार। अपने दो करीबी मित्रों प्रेसिडेंट कोस्टा और प्रेसिडेंट फॉन डेर लायन का इस अभूतपूर्व भारत यात्रा में स्वागत करते हुए मुझे बहुत खुशी हो रही है। कोस्टा जी अपनी सरल जीवन शैली और समाज के प्रति प्रेम के आधार पर लिस्बन के गांधी के नाम से जाने जाते हैं और उर्सुला जी जर्मनी की पहली महिला रक्षा मंत्री नहीं, यूरोपियन यूनियन कमीशन की भी पहली महिला प्रेसिडेंट बनकर पूरी दुनिया के लिए एक प्रेरणा है। कल एक ऐतिहासिक क्षण था जब पहली बार यूरोपियन यूनियन के लीडर्स भारत के गणतंत्र दिवस समारोह में मुख्य अतिथि के रूप में शामिल हुए। आज एक और ऐतिहासिक अवसर है जब विश्व की दो सबसे बड़ी लोकतांत्रिक शक्तियां अपने संबंधों में एक निर्णायक अध्याय जोड़ रही है। फ्रेंड्स, पिछले कुछ वर्षों में भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन के संबंधों में उल्लेखनीय प्रगति हुई है। साझा लोकतांत्रिक मूल्यों, आर्थिक सिनर्जी और मजबूत पीपल टू पीपल टाइज के आधार पर हमारी साझेदारी नई ऊंचाइयों तक पहुंच रही है। आज हमारे बीच 180 बिलियन यूरो का ट्रेड है। 8 लाख से अधिक भारतीय यूरोपियन यूनियन के देशों में रह रहे हैं और सक्रिय योगदान दे रहे हैं। हमने स्ट्रेटेजिक टेक्नोलॉजी से लेकर क्लीन एनर्जी, डिजिटल गवर्नेंस से लेकर डेवलपमेंट पार्टनरशिप, हर क्षेत्र में सहयोग के नए आयाम स्थापित किए हैं। इन्हीं उपलब्धियों के आधार पर आज की समिट में हमने समाज के सभी वर्गों को लाभ पहुंचाने वाले कई निर्णय लिए हैं। फ्रेंड्स, आज भारत ने अपने इतिहास का अब तक का सबसे बड़ा फ्री ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट संपन्न किया है। आज 27 तारीख है। ये सुखद संयोग है कि आज ही के दिन यूरोपियन यूनियन के 27 देशों के साथ भारत ये एफटीए कर रहा है। यह एक ऐतिहासिक समझौता हमारे किसानों, हमारे छोटे उद्योगों, इसके यूरोपियन मार्केट तक पहुंच आसान बनाएगा, मैन्युफैक्चरिंग में नए अवसर पैदा करेगा और हमारे सर्विसेज सेक्टर के बीच सहयोग को और प्रबल करेगा। इतना ही नहीं, यह एफटीए भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन के बीच इन्वेस्टमेंट को बूस्ट करेगा, नई इनोवेशन पार्टनरशिप बनाएगा और वैश्विक स्तर पर सप्लाई चेन को मजबूत करेगा। यानी यह सिर्फ ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट नहीं है, यह साझा समृद्धि का नया ब्लूप्रिंट है। फ्रेंड्स, इस महत्वाकांक्षी एफटीए के साथ साथ हम मोबिलिटी के लिए भी एक नया फ्रेमवर्क बना रहे हैं। इससे भारत के स्टूडेंट्स, वर्कर्स और प्रोफेशनल्स के लिए यूरोपियन यूनियन में नए अवसर खुलेंगे। साइंस एंड टेक्नोलॉजी में हमारा लंबे समय से एक व्यापक सहयोग रहा है। आज हमने इन महत्वपूर्ण लिंकेजेस को भी और मजबूत करने का निर्णय लिया है। फ्रेंड्स, रक्षा और सुरक्षा सहयोग किसी भी स्ट्रेटेजिक पार्टनरशिप की नींव होती है और आज हम इसे सिक्योरिटी एंड डिफेंस पार्टनरशिप के जरिए औपचारिक रूप दे रहे हैं। इससे काउंटर टेररिज्म, मैरीटाइम और साइबर सिक्योरिटी में हमारी साझेदारी और गहरी होगी। यह रूल्स बेस्ड इंटरनेशनल ऑर्डर के प्रति हमारी साझा प्रतिबद्धता को भी बल देगा। इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र में हमारे सहयोग का दायरा और बढ़ेगा और इसके साथ हमारी डिफेंस कंपनियां को डेवलपमेंट और को प्रोडक्शन के नए अवसर साकार करेगी। फ्रेंड्स, आज की इन उपलब्धियों के आधार पर हम अगले 5 वर्ष के लिए एक और भी एम्बिशियस और होलिस्टिक स्ट्रेटेजिक एजेंडा लॉन्च कर रहे हैं। एक जटिल वैश्विक वातावरण में ये एजेंडा स्पष्ट दिशा देगा, हमारी साझा समृद्धि को आगे बढ़ाएगा, इनोवेशन को गति देगा, सुरक्षा सहयोग और सुदृढ़ करेगा और पीपल टू पीपल टाइज को और गहरा करेगा। फ्रेंड, भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन का सहयोग एक पार्टनरशिप फॉर ग्लोबल गुड है। हम इंडो पैसिफिक से लेकर कैरेबियन तक ट्राइलेटरल प्रोजेक्ट को विस्तार देंगे। इससे सस्टेनेबल एग्रीकल्चर, क्लीन एनर्जी और विमेन एम्पावरमेंट को ठोस समर्थन मिलेगा। हम साथ मिलकर आईमैक कॉरिडोर को ग्लोबल ट्रेड और सस्टेनेबल डेवलपमेंट की एक प्रमुख कड़ी के रूप में स्थापित करेंगे। फ्रेंड्स, आज ग्लोबल ऑर्डर में बड़ी उथल-पुथल है। ऐसे में भारत और यूरोपियन यूनियन की साझेदारी अंतर्राष्ट्रीय सिस्टम में स्थिरता को मजबूती देगी। इस संदर्भ में आज हमने यूक्रेन, पश्चिमी एशिया, इंडो पैसिफिक सहित कई वैश्विक मुद्दों पर विस्तार से चर्चा की। मल्टीलेटरलिज्म और इंटरनेशनल नॉर्म्स का सम्मान हमारी साझी प्राथमिकता है। हम एकमत है कि आज के चैलेंजेस का समाधान करने के लिए ग्लोबल इंस्टीट्यूशंस का रिफॉर्म अनिवार्य है। फ्रेंड्स, राष्ट्रों के संबंधों में कभी कभी ऐसा क्षण आता है जब इतिहास स्वयं कहता है यहीं से दिशा बदली, यहीं से एक नया युग शुरू हुआ। भारत की और यूरोपियन यूनियन की यह ऐतिहासिक समिट वही क्षण है। मैं एक बार फिर इस अभूतपूर्व यात्रा के लिए, भारत के प्रति आपकी मित्रता के लिए और हमारे साझा भविष्य के प्रति आपकी प्रतिबद्धता के लिए प्रेसिडेंट कोस्टा और प्रेसिडेंट फॉन डर लायन का हार्दिक धन्यवाद करता हूं। थैंक यू।
Thank you, sir. Request His Excellency Mr. Antonio Costa, President of the European Council, to give his remarks to the media.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi, my dear friend, dear Ursula, ministers, dear Kaya and Maros, good afternoon. Thank you, dear Prime Minister Modi, for welcoming us on this special occasion. We were privileged yesterday to be your chief guests for the Republic Day celebrations. Such an impressive display of India's capabilities and diversity. Today is a historic moment. We are opening a new chapter in our relations on trade, on security, on people-to-people ties. I'm the president of the European Council, but I'm also an overseas Indian citizen. Then, as you can imagine, for me, it has a special meaning. I'm very proud of my roots in Goa, where my father's family came from. And the connection between Europe and India is something personal to me. Also because we conclude today our trade negotiations. We relaunched at the latest meeting that I had the pleasure to host in May 2021 in my previous capacity. Our summit sends a clear message to the world. At a time when the global order is being fundamentally reshaped, the European Union and India stand together as a strategic and reliable partners. Today, we are taking our partnership to the next level. As the two largest democracies in the world, we are working hand in hand to deliver concrete benefits for our citizens and to shape a resilient global order that underpins peace and stability, economic growth, and sustainable development. I would like to share three messages. First, the European Union and India must work together towards our shared prosperity and security. India is the world's fastest growing major economy. Trade has flowed between our two continents for centuries. And trade is crucial geopolitical stabilizer and the fundamental source of economic growth. Trade agreements reinforce rules-based economic order and promote shared prosperity. That's why today's free trade agreement is of historic importance. One of the most ambitious agreements ever concluded, creating a market of 2 billion people. In a multipolar world, the European Union and India are working together to grow spheres of shared prosperity. But prosperity does not exist without security. Strengthen our cooperation to better protect our citizens and our shared interests. Working together to counter the full range of security threats we face in the Indo-Pacific, in Europe, and around the world, reaching a new level of strategic trust between us. That is the significance of our agreement on a security and defense partnership. The first such overarching defense and security framework between India and the European Union, and the first step towards even more ambitious cooperation in the future. This brings me to my second message. As the world's largest democracies and champions of multilateralism, the European Union and India share the responsibility to upholding the international law with the United Nations Charter at its core. Earlier this morning, we and Ursula and President Ursula had the opportunity to pay tribute to Mahatma Gandhi. And I reflected upon his words, which still hold true today, and I quoted, "Peace will not come out of a clash of arms, but out of justice lived and done by unarmed nations in the face of odds." Our summit reaffirmed our commitment to supporting efforts towards a comprehensive, just and lasting peace in Ukraine, one that fully respects Ukraine's independence, sovereignty, and territorial integrity. This is the key moment. We are supporting all efforts to reach a just and sustainable peace. Ukraine has shown its readiness, including at the cost of difficult compromise. I know, dear Prime Minister, that we can count on you to help creating conditions for peace through dialogue and diplomacy. And this is my final message. Together, we must show leadership on global issues. Cooperation between the European Union and India will help shape a more balanced, resilient, and inclusive global order. Just two examples. I'm proud of the commitments we are making for greater cooperation on clean energy, green transition, and climate resilience. And our collaboration through the Global Gateway and on the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor is decisive for global connectivity. By implementing the ambitious Joint Comprehensive Strategic Agenda towards 2030, we will align our priorities with concrete actions for the next 5 years, delivering real benefits to our citizens. Today, we have tangible progress and set an example of cooperative leadership on global issues with our free trade agreement, our security and defense partnership, and our joint strategic agenda. These outcomes are crucial milestones on the longer path. We look forward to continuing the journey together, as always. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. May I now request Her Excellency Ms. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, to give her remarks to the media.
Dear Prime Minister Modi, distinguished friend, Antonio, my friend, ministers, especially Shankar and Guyal, Vice President Kallas, Commissioner Šefčovič, Excellencies, friends, thank you very much for the exceptional hospitality we experienced. It was such an honor for us to be your chief guests at the Republic Day yesterday. This is a memory I will carry for a lifetime, because the sense of communion was so powerful. People filled the streets united in pride and joy of belonging to the Indian nation, and rightfully so. India has risen, and Europe is truly glad about it, because when India succeeds, the world is more stable, more prosperous, and more secure, and we all benefit. Prime Minister Modi, dear friend, 1 year ago, the full College of Commissioners came to India. You mentioned it. And this is also a very special memory for me. It showed the seriousness of our intent and the strength of our commitment. Today, we reap the fruits of that commitment with our historic summit. And let me start with trade. Prime Minister, distinguished friend, we did it. We delivered the mother of all deals. We are creating a market of 2 billion people, and this is the tale of two giants, the world's second and fourth largest economies, two giants who choose partnership in a true win-win fashion. A strong message that cooperation is the best answer to global challenges. This trade will integrate further our supply chain and strengthen our joint manufacturing power. It will cut up to 4 billion euros in annual tariffs for exporters of all sizes. And it will create good jobs for millions of workers here in India and in Europe. At the same time, this agreement will build on the natural complementarity of our economies. It brings together Indian skills, services, and scale with Europe's technology, capital, and innovation. It will create levels of growth that neither side can achieve alone. And by combining these strengths, we reduce strategic dependencies at a time when trade is increasingly weaponized. We will discuss this and more at our first EU-India Business Forum later today. I want to offer a special word of thanks to the people who worked so hard to make this day a reality. Starting with the European Union's Trade Commissioner Maroš Šefčovič and his counterpart, India's Commerce Minister Piyush Goyal. You have done an outstanding work. This is historic, and it would not have been possible without you. I also want to pay tribute to their colleagues, Sabine Weyand and Secretary Rajesh Agrawal. Many others made vital contributions. I congratulate you all. The hard work was worth it. Prime Minister, distinguished friend, we're not only making our economy stronger, we're also delivering security for our people in an increasingly insecure world. And today, the world's two largest economies and democracies launched their first ever security and defense partnership. This is a landmark departure and a trust-based platform for cooperation on the strategic issues that matter most. In doing so, we will help to build each other's resilience. Europe and India have a long history of cooperation in the defense industry. Now we will enhance this teamwork even further. We will deepen our cooperation on maritime security, for example, joint naval exercises to tackle piracy. And we will step up our work on countering cyber and hybrid threats, which are getting more sophisticated by the day. And our partnership includes a dedicated dialogue on space security, from situational awareness to secure connectivity, and stronger cooperation on counterterrorism. Finally, we are launching negotiations on a security of information agreement. Europe and India have chosen to be reliable partners to one another, and this is how we demonstrate the trust we share. Prime Minister Modi, distinguished friend, I want to turn to innovation, because here too we share core values. The freedom of research and science is paramount for us. Europe and India will always choose science. We will always choose progress, the way forward. We will always choose technology at the service of our people. It's part of who we are. And our cooperation on human-centric, trustworthy artificial intelligence is one of the best examples. So today I'm glad to announce that we are working on India's association with Horizon Europe. Backed by funding firepower of 100 billion euros, Horizon is the world's largest public research program. And I can't wait for our best talents to get to work to advance health, clean energy, frontier technologies, just to name some. We will set up EU-India innovation hubs. This will help researchers and startups to collaborate on next-generation technology. And we are also launching the EU-India Startup Partnership to boost co-creation and high-potential ventures. Finally, Prime Minister dear Narendra, we both know our greatest wealth are our people. That is why I'm so glad that we are signing an agreement on mobility. We will facilitate the movement of students, researchers, seasonal and highly skilled workers. And this is also why we are launching the first EU legal gateway office in India. It will be a one-stop hub to support Indian talent moving to Europe in full alignment with EU member states' needs and policies. This is good for our economies. This is good for the friendship between our people. And this openness benefits us all. As we conclude this 16th summit, let me reflect on another event of deep meaning. 2 weeks ago, India marked Makar Sankranti. It's the beginning of Uttarayan, the sun's northward journey. From darkness to light, from stillness to growth, from what was to what can be. And that is what makes our summit so unique and timely. The time is right for renewal, for fresh momentum, and for opening a new chapter in EU-India friendship. And this is exactly what we have achieved together today. Thank you very much.
घर है वही जहाँ सब संग हो रिश्तों को रंग दो दुनिया को रंग दो
Birla Opus Paints.
Taxes, jobs, housing, electric vehicles, defense. News9 decodes the numbers behind the noise. You define India's growth story. We decode what's in it for you. Budget 2026. No noise, no confusion. A budget for a bulletproof Bharat.
This is India's India's #1 news network. And you're watching News 9. English news as it should be.
Hello and welcome. You are watching News 9. I am Krishna Kumar. These are the headlines that we're tracking. Prime Minister Modi calls mother of all deals India's biggest trade deal ever. Says not just a trade agreement but a blueprint for shared prosperity. As the world's biggest economies change global trade forever, EU chief Ursula von der Leyen tells Prime Minister Modi, "We did it, we delivered the mother of all deals," calls India-EU partnership a win-win. European Council President Antonio Costa calls the India-EU ties personal. Says, "I'm from Goa, I'm a global Indian citizen," hails new pact as the most ambitious free trade agreement ever and says partnership goes beyond diplomacy. Kerala court denies bail to vlogger Shimjita Mustafa in the abetment to suicide case linked to Deepak's death, cites risk of evidence tampering and amidst ongoing probe. Huge protests against UGC equity rules that mandate equity commissions across college campuses. Protests intensify across cities, alleging bias against general category. Trouble continues for Vijay's Jananayagan. High Court bench sets aside single judge order, said the earlier order should not have been passed without going into proper merits of the case and without giving CBFC a proper hearing. Release of the movie further delayed. Grok AI wrongly translates PM Modi's Maldives post, inserts anti-India campaign, mistranslates a routine goodwill message into negative messaging. Grok issues a casual apology in Hindi with "Sorry yaar." We begin with the massive row that has erupted over the UGC's new equity regulations 2026, with the issue now reaching the Supreme Court of India and triggering political, student and administrative backlash. Nearly 20 petitions have been filed in the top court challenging the regulations' definition of caste-based discrimination and alleging bias against general category students, particularly the absence of safeguards against false complaints. There have been protests across cities from Delhi to Lucknow to Bareilly. Take a look at this ground report.
तमाम लोग जो हैं वो झंडे बैनर ले करके यहाँ पर पहुंचे हुए हैं और विरोध प्रदर्शन कर रहे हैं। लोगों से बातचीत करते हैं। क्या नाम है आपका? क्या नाम है आपका?
मेरा नाम दुष्यंत कौशल है, जिला अध्यक्ष हूँ सबड़ आर्मी से मुरादाबाद से।
क्या मांग है? आप लोग प्रदर्शन करने आए यूजीसी के बाहर?
ये अभी एक यूजीसी के द्वारा एक कानून पारित किया गया था, जिसको लेकर के हमने एक मांग, ये घेराव करा है आज यहाँ दिल्ली पर आकर के, कि ऐसा काला कानून जो सवर्ण समाज के बच्चों के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा अभिशाप बन करके आएगा, तो इसको हम चाहते हैं कि इसे ये बंद होना चाहिए। कब तक हम लोग अत्याचार झेलते रहेंगे? SC ST को झेलते हुए आ रहे हैं, जातिगत आरक्षण की व्यवस्था को झेलते हुए आ रहे हैं। अब ये UGC ला के खड़ा कर दिया। क्या हमारे देश के, हमारे पूर्वजों ने, सवर्ण समाज के पूर्वजों ने क्या इस देश के लिए योगदान नहीं दिया, बलिदान नहीं दिया? कब तक हम बोल रहेंगे, कब तक चुप रहेंगे? ये सरकारों को समझना होगा। सरकार विकास के मुद्दे पे काम करे, पर सरकार बच्चों को और आपसी मतभेद ये बढ़ाना चाहती है सरकार।
तरीके से सवर्णों के खिलाफ बता रहे हैं आप इस नियम को?
ये सवर्णों के इसलिए खिलाफ है कि इसमें एक यूनिटी कमेटी बनाई गई है, जिसमें सदस्य भी जो सदस्य वहाँ पे बिठाए गए हैं वो भी SC ST OBC समाज के हैं। और जो पीड़ित व्यक्ति होगा भाई वो जो है किस पे आरोप लगाएगा? सवर्ण समाज के बच्चे पे लगाएगा। वो पीड़ित है नहीं है, इसकी जांच की कोई व्यवस्था सुविधा नहीं दे रखी है। अगर वो सही पाया गया तो 3 साल की सजा है, अगर नहीं पाया जाता है तो उसके खिलाफ कोई कार्रवाई नहीं है। जो व्यक्ति वहाँ पर जाकर एप्लीकेशन देगा उस यूनिटी कमेटी के पास जाकर के, तो ऐसे काले कानूनों को सरकार वापस ले, अन्यथा सवर्ण समाज सड़क पर उतरकर बहुत बड़ा आंदोलन करेगा।
The center has sought to reassure students and institutions over the new UGC equity regulations. According to sources, the government says the rules will be fair, impartial and applicable to all, insisting that no one will face unfair treatment. It has also acknowledged concerns and says clarifications will be issued soon to address any misconceptions surrounding the notified rules. Listen to what Union Minister Dharmendra Pradhan had to say on the matter.
किसी को उत्पीड़न होने नहीं दिया जाए, कोई भेदभाव नहीं होगा, कोई डिस्क्रिमिनेशन के नाम पे किसी को भी मिसयूज करने का अधिकार नहीं रहेगा। इसमें UGC हो, भारत सरकार हो या राज्य सरकार हो, इसकी दायित्व रहेगी। मैं आश्वस्त करता हूँ उसको जो व्यवस्था हुई है, भारत की कुछ भी व्यवस्था हो संविधान की परिधि के अंदर होगा। और ये जो विषय आई है ये तो सुप्रीम कोर्ट की निगरानी में व्यवस्था है। इसमें आश्वस्त मैं फील करना चाहता हूँ, कोई भी किसी के ऊपर भी अत्याचार या किसी को भी भेदभाव नहीं किया जाएगा।
The new UGC equity regulations make sweeping changes mandatory across higher education institutions. Under the new rules, all colleges and universities must set up equal opportunity centers and equity committees with dedicated equity squads to monitor discrimination on campuses. The regulations mandate the representation of SC, ST, OBC, PWD and women members on these panels, which will be headed by a senior faculty member and have fixed 2-year terms. Institutions are also required to provide counseling and support for disadvantaged groups. The UGC has warned that non-compliance will invite strict action, including removal from UGC schemes and even suspension of academic programs. The move is aimed at tackling campus discrimination but has already triggered an intense debate across the nation. Political reactions have sharpened. While some have supported the new regulations, others have criticized it soundly. Even some BJP leaders have warned that these regulations could widen caste divisions and disturb social balance. Student bodies have also joined the protests. Protests were seen across towns and cities in Lucknow, Bareilly and the national capital Delhi. Take a look at this report from Greater Noida.
UGC के नियम के खिलाफ पूरे उत्तर प्रदेश नहीं पूरे भारत में विरोध प्रदर्शन चल रहा है। स्वर्ण समाज इस वक्त सड़कों पर उतरा हुआ है। बरेली में जहां सिटी मजिस्ट्रेट अलंकार अग्निहोत्री ने इस्तीफा दिया, तो वहीं ग्रेटर नोएडा में अब स्वर्ण समाज सड़कों पर उतरकर पैदल मार्च कर रहा है। आप देख सकते हैं तस्वीरों में बैनर भी हाथ में है जिसमें लिखा हुआ है स्वर्ण के न्याय में राष्ट्रवादी करनी सेना मैदान में, UGC हटाओ स्वर्ण बचाओ। आप देख सकते हैं तस्वीरों में तमाम जो और इस प्रदर्शन का इस पैदल मार्च का समर्थन किसान यूनियन भी कर रही है। सड़कों पर लोग उतरे हुए हैं। नियमों का जो बदलाव हुआ है उसके विरोध में ये लोग उतरे हुए हैं। क्या नाम है आपका?
मेरा नाम करण ठाकुर है और राष्ट्रवादी करनी सेना का मैं राष्ट्रीय अध्यक्ष हूँ।
क्यों आज आप लोग विरोध कर रहे हैं, क्या कारण है?
ये UGC जो है कानून लेके आया है, समता कानून, उसमें जो खामियां हैं जो उन्होंने जो सवर्ण जाति को और पिछड़ी जाति को, ओबीसी जाति को दो भागों में बांटने का काम किया है, हम उसके खिलाफ आज सड़क पर उतरे हैं। और मोदी सरकार जब तक इस कानून को वापसी नहीं लेती है, हम लगातार प्रदर्शन करते रहेंगे।
ये एक उदाहरण के तौर पे बताइए, नियम अगर लागू हो रहा है तो क्या नुकसान है?
देखिए, ऐसा आज तक देश में कोई कानून नहीं बना है कि अगर कोई किसी के खिलाफ झूठी जो केस करता है और उस पर कोई कार्रवाई ना हो, और ऐसा कोई कानून आज तक देश में नहीं बना है कि कॉलेजों के अंदर भी आरक्षण जातिवाद इन्होंने जो बढ़ाया है, और इसका जो आरोप है, झूठे आरोप लगाने वालों की संख्या बढ़ेगी। और सवर्ण जाति के बच्चों के भविष्य का सवाल है, अध्यापकों का सवाल है। जो हमारी बहनें माताएं पढ़ाने जाएंगी, उन पे झूठे मुकदमे होंगे, उनको अरेस्ट किया जाएगा, उन पे जो ब्लैकमेलिंग की जाएगी उनके साथ। जो समता कमेटी है उसमें भी उसी जाति के लोग हैं जिस जाति को इन्होंने आरक्षण उसमें दिया है।
ये बताइए, अगर इस नियम को वापस सरकार नहीं लेती है तो अगला कदम क्या रहेगा आप लोगों का?
दिल्ली को जाम कर देंगे, दिल्ली को जाम कर देंगे, चक्का जाम कर देंगे, और हम जंतर मंतर ही नहीं, संसद का भी घेराव करने का काम करेंगे।
The controversy escalated further after Bareilly City Magistrate Alankar Agnihotri resigned, calling the regulations a quote-unquote black law and accusing them of vitiating the academic environment. His resignation sparked sharp political reactions and raised questions about administrative pressure.
मैं यहाँ पे जिलाधिकारी महोदय से प्रश्न पूछने आया हूँ। कल रात को किस व्यक्ति का कॉल आया था जिलाधिकारी महोदय के फोन पे, जिसमें पूरे बोल रहा था कि साला पंडित पागल हो गया है। कौन सी विचारधारा का ब्राह्मण विचारधारा है? जो आपसे पंडित के नाम से जो गाली दे रहा है, ऐसी कौन सा विचारधारा व्यक्ति जिसने कॉल किया था कि साला पंडित पागल हो गया है? मैं भारत की माननीय राष्ट्रपति महोदया, भारत के प्रधानमंत्री जी और भारत के जो गृह मंत्री अमित शाह जी हैं, उन सबसे निवेदन करूंगा जल्दी से जल्दी यहाँ पे संवैधानिक तंत्र, सामान्य वर्ग पूरा खिलाफ हो चुका है, करंट जो सरकार है खिलाफ हो चुका है। आप तुरंत से तुरंत गवर्नर मैम के माध्यम से एक रिपोर्ट लेके यहाँ पे जो संवैधानिक तंत्र को जो है वापस जो बहाल करें, यहाँ राष्ट्रपति शासन तुरंत लगाएं। मेरा प्रश्न है ये अपने जिलाधिकारी महोदय से कि कौन से ऐसा विचारधारा का व्यक्ति उनसे फोन पे बात कर रहा था जो निर्देश दे रहा था कि ये साला पंडित पागल हो गया है। आप सोच रहे हैं कि हम बार बार आपसे बोल रहे हैं कि उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार है ब्राह्मण विरोधी विचारधारा पे काम कर रही है, और कौन सा ऐसा व्यक्ति था उसका नाम उजागर करे। डीएम साहब यहाँ स्वयं आए, डीएम साहब स्वयं आए, और मेरे अगर डीएम साहब मना करते हैं तो मेरे प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी से निवेदन है कि आप स्वयं यहाँ बनारस से उत्तर प्रदेश में सांसद हैं। ऐसा कौन सा व्यक्ति विचारधारा है? आपको सब समाज आपको वोट देता है, सब आपके साथ। उत्तर प्रदेश सरकार में ब्राह्मण विरोधी अभियान चल रहा है। ब्राह्मणों को चुन चुनकर उन पे अत्याचार किए जा रहे हैं। कहीं जेल में डिप्टी जेलर ब्राह्मण को मार दे रहा है, कहीं किसी थाने में विकलांग ब्राह्मण को पीट पीट के मार दिया जा रहा है। अभी हाल ही की जो 2 हफ्ते के अंदर जो घटनाएं हुई, जिसमें कि माघ मेले में मौनी अमावस्या के दिन हमारे शंकराचार्य जी ज्योतिर्मठ के अभिमुक्तेश्वर जी महाराज वहां पर स्नान के लिए गए, तो उनके शिष्यों के साथ बूढ़े बूढ़े सन्यासियों के साथ, आप सोचिए, पैरों से, लात से, जूते से मारा गया है। जब प्रशासन के लोग ऐसे मारेंगे तो क्या बाहर के जो अन्य वर्ग के व्यक्ति हैं, क्या आप मैसेज देना चाहते हैं कि जब वो प्रशासन के लोग ऐसे मारे तो वहां तो नरसंहार होगा? आप क्या चाहते हैं? ब्राह्मणों का नरसंहार कराना चाहते हैं? अभी जो केंद्र सरकार का जो रेगुलेशन आया है 2026 13 जनवरी को जो भारत सरकार का गजट रिलीज हुआ है, उसमें आपने सामान्य वर्ग के अभ्यर्थी जो यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ रहे हैं उसको स्वघोषित अपराधी मान लिया। मतलब आपका बेटा या बेटी वहां पढ़ रहे होंगे, उन पे कोई भी फर्जी शिकायत लगा देगा, ये हमसे भेदभाव कर रहा है, और समता समिति उसका शोषण करेगी।
In the midst of all of this, we're also getting news that the centre has consulted Attorney General R. Venkatramani and Solicitor General Tushar Mehta on the new UGC equity regulations. Sources are telling us that legal advice was sought on multiple aspects, including Supreme Court precedents on caste discrimination, as over a dozen petitions now challenge the rules in the apex court. With the opposition mounting, the government is reviewing every aspect of the regulations. And in the latest developments in the case, let's listen to all the reactions.
पिछले चुनाव में बीजेपी के करारी हार के बाद पिछड़े वर्ग के लोगों को साधने का सिर्फ एक बहाना है, बाकी ना उनकी उन्नति, ना उनका आर्थिक विकास, ना उनको मुख्य धारा में लाने की कोई भी प्रयास बीजेपी सरकार कर रही है। जो कानून पहले से ही है उस कानून को आप फॉलो नहीं कर रहे हैं तो निश्चित तौर से यह देश के पिछड़े, दलित और आदिवासी लोगों के आंख में धूल झोंकने के अलावा कुछ नहीं कर रहा है।
ऐसी कोई बात नहीं हुई कि उनको बंधक बनाया गया या कोई ऐसी बात नहीं, मतलब बातचीत के लिए वो खुद ही गए थे और बात कर करके वो चले आए और उनका व्यू था कि नहीं हम साहब रोल बैक नहीं, बस बात ये हुई थी कि भाई आपको अगर कोई
In the latest developments in the case involving the suicide of a man in Kozhikode in Kerala, the Kunnamangalam Judicial Magistrate Court has rejected the bail plea of vlogger Shimjita Mustafa, who was arrested in connection with the incident. The court based its decision on the police remand report, which states that preliminary investigations indicate that videos posted by the accused on social media may have allegedly contributed to the suicide of the 41-year-old man. Shimjita Mustafa, who's 35 years old, from Chorod in Vadakara in Kerala, was arrested last Wednesday on charges of abetment of suicide. Her arrest came after several videos circulated on social media in which she accused Deepak of misconduct during a bus journey from Payyanur on the 16th of January. We have my colleague Vivek Narayanan joining us live from Kerala. Vivek, now the case becomes that much more difficult for the accused Shimjita Mustafa, isn't it, after the rejection of her bail plea?
Absolutely. Now that it becomes even more complex and difficult for YouTuber Shimjita, because remember, this is an abetment to suicide case that's been registered in this particular case, and Shimjita has been sent to 14 days of judicial custody. Now remember, this incident happened 2 weeks ago, where Deepak, while he was traveling in a bus, there was a lady called Shimjita who actually got inside this bus and shot a video saying that Deepak was touching her inappropriately, and later she posted that video in her Instagram account, and following which we saw a huge backlash against her. But she again clarified, saying that she stands with the statement. But in just 2 days, we saw Deepak, a sales manager from Kozhikode, dying by suicide. Because of the mental stress he had gone through. Remember, he had already decided to file a complaint against Shimjita in this particular case. This entire incident has raised a lot of questions regarding, people taking social media roles and also videos, being posted in social media accounts without the permission of other people, and also in public transport buses. Now, in this particular case, remember, Shimjita was being absconding. She was arrested later, and the court rejected, her bail plea at that point of time, and she was being sent to judicial custody. Now that today bail plea has been rejected, there are chances that she could approach the Kerala High Court in this case, saying because she herself has filed a complaint in the meantime, saying that she had been the person were trying to molest her. But there are various reactions as far as this incident is concerned, because the video is out in clear. Many people say that there was no such intentional act by Deepak, but there are few people who also support Shimjita, saying that there are women who undergo such kind of situation. They may not react, in a bus. So it's indeed a very, very complex situation. But as of now, yes, things have become even worse for Shimjita Mustafa. Her bail plea has been rejected by the Kunnamangalam Magistrate Court.
Yes, Vivek also talked to us. This kind of a case, if I'm not mistaken, there was even a Malayalam movie called Vikriti, which sort of described how taking a video, voyeuristic video of something and putting that up online can, it seems to be a very peculiar social problem in Kerala per se.
Absolutely, it has indeed become a very, very peculiar issue as far as Kerala is concerned, because these kind of incidents have been repeating again and again, where people have going to public spaces, even private spaces, and trying to capture videos of people, causing causing various reactions from the people, especially in the public scenario, where many started questioning these kind of videos. They say that no one has got the right to actually take a video of a person, especially a person or a couple or a family, without their permission. Now, in this particular case, remember, she was traveling in a bus. Earlier also, she has been posting a number of videos. Remember, she was a ward member, a UDF ward member in Kozhikode, and she had gone to Dubai. In Dubai, she had posted a number of videos in a social media account. A lot of questions has been raised against her videos. Some has been supporting her. Remember, she's got lakhs of followers meanwhile. Now, this following is one reason which actually has led to Deepak, taking this extreme step. Remember, after this incident, Deepak was literally worried. He hasn't even spoken to his parents. Instead, he has spoken to his friends, some of his advocates, as what legal step can be taken as far as this case is concerned. Because remember, he was a family man. He had a wife, he had children, and they were all disturbed following this incident. And it was after all these things that he felt that this could haunt him, even after days and months, and that's why he has taken this extreme step. Now, the government has not spoken on this particular matter.
Okay.
But human interest, the State Human Rights Commission has registered a case as far as this matter is concerned.
Okay.
And we need to see as what is going to happen going forward.
Okay, fair enough. We'll leave it at that. Vivek Narayanan there joining us with the latest from Kerala. Thank you, Vivek, for bringing us that update. From Kerala to Tamil Nadu, where the wait for Thalapathy Vijay's film Jananayagan is set to get longer. The Madras High Court today set aside the single judge's order directing the issuance of a censor certificate, effectively delaying the film's release further. The High Court observed that the single judge should have granted the Central Board of Film Certification, or CBFC, adequate time to file its counter. The court allowed the writ petition filed by the CBFC and remitted the matter back to the single judge for fresh consideration. As things stand, Jananayagan cannot be released in theatres unless it receives clearance from the Central Board of Film Certification, and the film is yet to be issued a censor certificate. Vijay's much anticipated film was originally scheduled for a Pongal festival release on the 9th of January. However, days before its release, the CBFC informed the producers that the chairman had decided to refer the film to a revising committee, prompting the makers to take legal action. We have my colleague Toya Jakshishekar now joining us on the phone. And Toya, this is, we're talking about 27th of January. This film was supposed to release on the 9th of January. And today too, there is no clarity on when it's going to release.
The Madras High Court has set aside a single judge's order directing the CBFC to certify the Tamil film Jananayagan, holding that the principles of natural justice had not been followed, and observing that the censor board had not given enough of time to provide a proper explanation, allowing an appeal filed by the CBFC. A division bench headed by the Chief Justice said the single judge had examined the merits of the dispute without giving the CBFCs, and despite there being no specific challenges in the right petition to the order of the CBFC, chairperson under which certification was denied. On the other hand, the case arose after, the producer approached the High Court alleging that the certification had been refused due to objections to the film's content, following which the single judge directed the CBFC to grant clearance, prompting the board to appeal. By setting aside the order, the division bench remanded the matter for a fresh consideration and directed the right court to hear the case, after giving all parties a fair hearing, and also permitting the producer to amend the right petition to specifically challenge the CBFC's chairperson's decision, where now the ruling has effectively stalled, the film's release, and also it has been reported that the producer is considering to approach the Supreme Court to challenge the High Court's verdict, which came out today. So we'll have to wait and see, because now the court has asked to again start freshly, and also Krishna.
Fair enough. Toya Jakshishekar there joining us with the latest on no relief for Jananayagan in Tamil Nadu. Meanwhile, in a surprising announcement from Tamil Nadu, the Amma Makkal Munnetra Kazhagam, or AMMK's General Secretary, TTV Dinakaran, has said that he will not contest the upcoming 2026 State Assembly elections. Speaking to reporters, TTV Dinakaran said that he will not be contesting the upcoming elections, and also said, and I quote here, "I will focus on making this party cadre, who have been working with me for the past 8 years, members of the Legislative Assembly. After the election victory, I will aim to make 3 or 4 AMMK members ministers." He further said that he personally wishes to secure a place in the cabinet, but clarified that no conditions have been imposed. He added that a coalition government is possible and expressed hope that O. Pannirselvam and others would join the AIA-DMK coalition. Now, Republic Day is meant to teach children dignity, equality, and respect for the Constitution. But in Madhya Pradesh's Maihar district, that message was lost in a deeply disturbing way. A shocking video from the Bhadgavan village has gone viral, showing government school children being served their Republic Day special midday meal on scraps of torn notebook paper instead of plates. As per government instructions, January 26th was marked with a special meal of puri and halwa. Children were seated on the ground, but instead of steel plates or even leaf plates, dirty, ink-stained paper sheets torn from old notebooks and books were laid out, and food was served directly on them. The visual showed children eating hot halwa and puris from paper that once carried ink, dust and grime, pages never meant for food. What makes this incident even more serious is that funds had already been released for purchasing plates based on the number of students enrolled. And yet on Republic Day, not a single plate was visible at the school. Health experts have flagged serious concerns. Serving food on printed or written paper is dangerous, especially hot food. Printing ink often contains lead and other harmful chemicals, which can leach into food and pose long-term health risks for children. After this video surfaced, parents and villagers expressed anger and deep embarrassment, questioning how such treatment of children was allowed under the supervision of the Education Department and on a day meant to celebrate equality and national pride. The Madhya Pradesh state government has now taken cognizance of the incident and ordered action against those responsible. But the incident raises a larger question. How did a celebration of the Constitution turn into an episode of humiliation for children? And how many such lapses go unnoticed until a camera exposes them? A fresh controversy has erupted on social media platform X after Grok, the platform's AI assistant, wrongly translated a diplomatic post by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Republic Day. The Prime Minister's original message, written in Divehi, was a routine exchange of goodwill, thanking Maldives President Mohammad Muizzu for Republic Day wishes and reaffirming cooperation and friendship between India and the Maldives. However, Grok's displayed translation dramatically altered the meaning. It incorrectly called Republic Day as Independence Day and went further ahead to touch upon diplomatically sensitive claims, alleging the Maldivian government of being involved in quote-unquote anti-national activities, something which was never stated by PM Modi in the original post. Screenshots of the AI-generated text spread rapidly online, raising concerns about misinformation and the risks of relying on automated translations for diplomatic communication. The incident comes at a sensitive time for India-Maldives relations and has once again raised questions about the accountability and, most importantly, the accuracy of AI tools embedded in major social media platforms. Grok later reacted casually to the controversy, saying that the translation appeared to have been glitched by just saying, and I quote here, "Sorry yaar, lagta hai translation mein glitch aa gaya." The episode has already reignited the debate over AI reliability in geopolitics, where even a single error can carry serious diplomatic consequences. All eyes are now on the Union budget for financial year 2026-27, set to be presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on the 1st of February. The budget comes at a time of rising global uncertainty, even as India steps up its push towards self-reliance and long-term growth ahead of the big day. Voices from across the industry, from EVs and AI to oil and gas, real estate, healthcare, banking, hospitality and education, are laying out their expectations, highlighting what they want the government to prioritize in the year ahead. News9 is starting a budget 2026 poll, a special one, and your voice matters. Scan the QR code on your screens, take part and vote on the key questions shaping India's economic future. And today's question: do you expect Budget 2026 to offer relief measures to MSMEs hit by higher tariffs and input costs? Scan the QR code on your screens and vote yes or no. We take a short breather here at this stage. We'll be back with lots more on the other side. Keep it at News9.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
रिश्तों को रंग दो, दुनिया को रंग दो।
Birla Opus Paints.
Taxes, jobs, housing, electric vehicles, defense. News9 decodes the numbers behind the noise. You define India's growth story. We decode what's in it for you. Budget 2026. No noise, no confusion. A budget for a bulletproof Bharat. This isn't a trail of peace. This is pressure overload. A hill built for 1,000, forced to carry lakhs.
Instead of lightening the footprint, you have allowed people to actually get into every nook and corner of the Himalayas.
Careless travel, choking hills. If we don't change now, there won't be much left to enjoy.
We need to follow the Bhutan model, regulate people who can access hills.
News9 presents Heal the Hills, continuous coverage.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
You're watching Global Lens. I'm Krishna Kumar. New Yorkers trudged through blinding snow and fierce winds as a major winter storm swept across the eastern U.S. New York City was among the hardest hit, with Mayor Zoran Mamdani saying that nearly a foot of snow accumulated in parts of the city, but essential services remained operational due to advanced planning and large-scale coordination. He also closed down schools and opened warming centers.
Nearly a foot of snow accumulated in parts of our city. And yet today, our city is up and running, thanks to the plans we put in place and the countless city workers who delivered on them. The strength of our response is a testament to all of those who put in long shifts, clearing snow from our parks, keeping our public transit running, and responding to emergencies. Over 5,000 sanitation workers traversed our 6,000 miles of roadway multiple times, using 2,500 pieces of equipment to plow snow, pour brine, and dispense tens of millions of pounds of salt. Every street in the city was plowed.
In Boston, residents were seen pushing cars through deep snow, battling slippery streets as the storm blanketed the city. Residents said the snowfall was overwhelming, forcing people to shovel before they could even step outside their homes. Yellow cabs stayed busy moving residents and tourists as snow plows cleared the roads. According to the National Weather Service's latest forecast, heavy snow from the Ohio Valley to the northeast is expected, including up to 18 inches in New England. Forecasters predicted bitterly cold temperatures and dangerously cold wind chills from the southern plains to the northeast of the U.S.
Shovel over there. Come on, Sean, look productive. Look productive.
Canada's largest city is digging out after a record-breaking snowfall brought parts of Toronto to a standstill. Downtown Toronto received nearly 2 feet of snow, while the city's main international airport recorded well over a foot, according to local weather authorities. The heavy accumulation buried vehicles, blocked streets and forced residents to shovel sidewalks and driveways through freezing conditions. Schools across Toronto remain closed as authorities warned that cleanup operations could take several days. Several flights were delayed or cancelled as strong winds and heavy snow reduced visibility to near zero at times. Other parts of the US were also hit by the same powerful storm system, bringing heavy snow, sleet, and freezing rain from the Ohio Valley and mid-south to New England, compounded by bitter Arctic cold gripping much of the region east of the Rockies or the Rocky Mountains. Residents were seen digging out snow in New Jersey as well as several inches of heavy snow accumulated. While the snowstorm has battered much of the US, for some it has become an opportunity for winter fun. Skiers and snowboarders turned snow-covered Boston streets into an improvised downhill course, gliding through the city after the winter storm blanketed the area. Residents in Boston were even seen skiing through the snow-covered streets, and as the historic winter storm continued to sweep across large parts of the U.S., Washington, D.C. was blanketed with over 20 centimeters of snow in nearly 20 hours of snowfall, with the U.S. capital likely to remain snowbound for a while as temperatures plunge to minus 10 degrees Celsius. At least 25 people have lost their lives, with deaths linked to hypothermia and exposure due to the winter storm. Authorities in the U.S. fear that the toll could rise further as the storm shows no signs of easing. The scale of disruption is immense. More than 670,000 homes, or 670,000 homes and businesses are without electricity, plunging entire neighborhoods into darkness. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or ICE agents, shot and killed 2 U.S. citizens in separate enforcement actions in Minneapolis this month as part of President Donald Trump's hardline immigration crackdown. Might there be legal repercussions, even though federal agents are generally immune from state prosecution for actions taken as part of their official duties? This report tells you more.
2 fatal shootings by ICE agents in Minneapolis have sparked a fierce backlash amid President Donald Trump's immigration crackdown. Can those agents be prosecuted? Here's a look.
ICE out!
The Department of Homeland Security said 37-year-old Alex Preddy approached ICE agents on January 24th with a handgun and violently resisted attempts to disarm him. Bystander videos verified by Reuters show Preddy holding not a gun, but a phone as he tries to help protesters whom agents pushed to the ground. The Minneapolis police chief said Preddy was carrying a handgun legally. And DHS said an officer had fired defensive shots after 37-year-old Renee Good attempted to run him over on January 7th. Online videos of the shooting verified by Reuters cast doubt on the government's narrative. Aaron Reichlin-Melnick, senior fellow at the American Immigration Council, breaks down the use of force law.
Legally, ICE agents are allowed to use force, but that has to be a reasonable degree of force. And the same use of force laws apply to ICE officers as they apply to any federal law enforcement officers. For example, deadly force, such as firing a gun, may only be used when it is in response to an imminent threat of deadly force used by someone else. So, broadly speaking, ICE officers do have legal authority to use force when conducting arrests, but are still limited by the requirement that that force be reasonable and proportionate.
Federal agents are generally immune from state prosecution for actions taken as part of their official duties. But immunity only applies when an officer's actions were authorized under federal law and were necessary and proper. Victims can sue the federal government for compensation when its employees cause financial or bodily injury in the course of their work. But these claims face limits. Legal experts generally consider the law a weak mechanism for addressing government officials' misconduct.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said on Monday that they had a productive discussion on immigration enforcement, in a possible sign that Trump might consider de-escalating a surge of ICE agents who have killed 2 U.S. citizens in the state in 1 month. More in this report.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Minnesota Governor Tim Walz said they had a productive call about immigration enforcement on Monday. The phone call was a possible sign that Trump might consider de-escalating the surge of agents in the state. After the second fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen by ICE agents in the past month.
Nobody in the White House, including President Trump, wants to see people getting hurt or killed in America's streets.
White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said the killing of 37-year-old nurse Alex Preddy on Saturday by federal officers was being investigated.
Saturday's shooting remains under active investigation by Homeland Security Investigations and the FBI. The Customs and Border Protection is also conducting their own internal review. As President Trump said yesterday, the administration is reviewing everything with respect to the shooting, and we will let that investigation play out.
Homeland Security Department officials described Saturday's incident as an attack by Preddy, saying agents fired in self-defense after he approached them with a handgun. But video from the scene verified by Reuters contradicts that account. Weeks after ordering thousands of federal immigration agents to Minnesota, Trump said he was now, quote, on a similar wavelength with the Democratic Governor Walz. But Leavitt also said the Trump administration would press ahead with deportations.
President Trump will never back down from his promise to deport violent criminal illegal aliens and make America safe again.
State officials, meanwhile, pressed a U.S. judge to temporarily stop the surge of 3,000 immigration agents, which they characterize as a tactic to pressure the state to change its immigration policies. Trump also dispatched the White House border czar Tom Homan to work with local officials following Saturday's shooting.
Former Olympic snowboarder Ryan Wedding appeared before a U.S. federal court in Santa Ana, California, pleading not guilty to charges of drug smuggling and ordering multiple drug-related murders.
A former Canadian Olympic snowboarder has pled not guilty to charges. He became an international drug kingpin. 44-year-old Ryan Wedding is at the center of a sweeping U.S. criminal case and appeared for the first time at a U.S. federal court in Santa Ana, California on Monday. Prosecutors accused him of being responsible for multiple drug-related murders and working with Mexico's Sinaloa cartel to transport hundreds of kilograms of cocaine from Colombia through Mexico to the U.S. and Canada. Anthony Colombo is Wedding's lawyer.
Today, Mr. Wedding entered a not guilty plea to both indictments that he's been charged with. The indictments are not evidence. They're just an accusation. He didn't surrender. He was apprehended. He was arrested. And so any spin that the government in Mexico is putting on this, that he surrendered, is inaccurate. And I think if there's anybody in a position to know how his arrest and apprehension went down, it's his counsel.
Wedding once competed for Canada at the 2002 Salt Lake City Olympics, and last year, he was added to the FBI's top 10 most wanted list. By November, a $15 million reward was offered for information leading to his capture. He was arrested in Mexico City on Thursday. Prosecutors accused him of directing the murder of a federal witness in Colombia last year before he could testify against Wedding. He's also accused of directing 2 murders and an attempted killing in Ontario in 2023, and another murder in Canada in 2024 over drug debts. If convicted of the most serious charges, he could face a sentence of life in prison.
A teenage motorcycle influencer has been killed during a security crackdown in northern Iran, according to reports by Iranian media and rights-focused outlets. 19-year-old Diana Bahadori, widely known online as Baby Rider, was allegedly shot dead by security forces in the city of Gorgan on the 9th of January. Bahadori had built a large following on social media for showcasing her super bike riding skills and her unconventional presence in a male-dominated space. Sources cited by local media outlets say she was hit twice by live ammunition around midnight during a heavy security operation to disperse protests reported across the city. The crackdown that night was described as particularly severe, with security forces allegedly deploying heavy weapons to control crowds. Family members reportedly searched for Bahadori for 2 days before her body was handed. Around the same time, a post appeared on her Instagram account claiming that she died in a traffic accident and urging the public not to speculate. However, sources dispute that version, alleging the family faced intense pressure from intelligence agencies. Reports say she was buried quietly without public ceremony, and relatives were compelled to deny any state role in her death, reflecting long-standing allegations of narrative control in protest-linked cases in Iran. Some Japanese officials have been discreetly urging fishermen and local politician Hitoshi Nakama and his peers to steer clear of the remote island outcrops known as Senkaku in Japan and Diaoyu in China to avoid escalating a diplomatic clash with Beijing, according to Nakama and 3 other people with knowledge of the requests. This report tells you all about it.
Hitoshi Nakama says he's not just a fisherman. He sees himself as a frontline defender of Japan's claim to disputed islands in the East China Sea. Sailing over 100 miles from his home port on Okinawa's Ishigaki Island to the Senkaku Islands, Nakama dodges Chinese Coast Guard ships to fish in the contentious waters. But since late last year, some Japanese officials have been discreetly urging.
Time now to cut across live to the India-EU Business Forum. That has begun with the arrival of Prime Minister Modi and European Commission's President Ursula von der Leyen. The photo opportunity kicking off the India-EU Business Forum. At the iconic Bharat Mandapam in the national capital, New Delhi, the India-EU Business Forum being held right after the signing of the mother of all deals, the free trade agreement between India and the European Union, strengthening India-EU economic ties like never before. A deal that is set to redraw the global trade map. Prime Minister Modi hailing it as the biggest ever trade deal Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission's chief, and the European Council's President Antonio Costa also being a part of heading the European delegation that has seen the conclusion of negotiations and the signing of this historic deal, taking part in the Republic Day celebrations, the 77th Republic Day celebrations of India, just yesterday on the 26th of January, and a day later, the momentous occasion has finally arrived with the signing of the free trade agreement between India and the European Union. Currently, we're getting to you all the latest visuals from the India-EU Business Forum. Well, businesses of both countries' representatives will engage in meetings and discussions to take the India-EU economic partnership forward. The EU later said that it would save 4 billion euros every year in duties because of this free trade agreement, as India has agreed to cut down and in some cases eliminate tariffs on nearly 97% of goods imported from Europe. With the India-European Union Free Trade Agreement, the Indian exports to the European Union is projected to rise by 6.4 lakh crore rupees. The signing of the mother of all deals followed by the India-EU Business Forum. The deal will widen market access across sectors, benefiting smaller industry, farmers, students and skilled professionals by easing tariffs and regulatory barriers. It's the 16th EU-India Summit. As guests of honor, the European Commission's President Ursula von der Leyen and European Council's Chief Antonio Costa, leading the delegation from Europe. This latest 16th edition of the EU-India Summit opening up a whole new chapter in the EU-India strategic partnership. The successful conclusion of the EU-India Free Trade Agreement and the launch of the India-EU Security and Defence Partnership, highlighting the potential and determination of both partners to shape one of the most defining partnerships of the 21st century, beginning with trade and extending into all other spheres. EU and India have further strengthened collaboration on emerging and critical technologies, innovation and research, including the creation of the EU-India Innovation Hubs and launching the EU-India Startup Partnership Program as well. In addition, the two have renewed the EU-India Agreement for Scientific and Technological Cooperation until the year 2030 and has also launched exploratory talks on the Association of India to Horizon Europe, the EU's flagship research and innovation program. The summit now is seeing the signature of the EU-India Security and Defence Partnership, the partnership enabling closer cooperation and joint initiatives on shared priorities like maritime security, non-proliferation and disarmament, space, countering cyber and hybrid threats, and counter-terrorism as well. Under this partnership, the EU and India will strengthen defence industrial cooperation and advance alignment on defence initiatives as well. There is also the EU-India Comprehensive Framework of Cooperation on Mobility, adopted as a Memorandum of Understanding in parallel with the finalization of the Free Trade Agreement. And that offers an excellent opportunity for both the partners to cooperate on facilitating labour mobility, supporting skills development and capacity building, and working on skills and qualification frameworks as well. And with that, it's a wrap here on this edition of Global Lens. Thank you for watching. Lots more coming up on the other side.
Taxes, jobs, housing, electric vehicles, defense. News9 decodes the numbers behind the noise. You define India's growth story. We decode what's in it for you. Budget 2026. No noise, no confusion. A budget for a bulletproof Bharat. This isn't a trail of peace. This is pressure overload. A hill built for 1,000, forced to carry lakhs.
Instead of lightening the footprint, you have allowed people to actually get into every nook and corner of the Himalayas.
Careless travel, choking hills. If we don't change now, there won't be much left to enjoy.
We need to follow the Bhutan model, regulate people who can access hills.
News9 presents Heal the Hills, continuous coverage.
When Trump captures Maduro, News9 breaks it first.
It's happening far away, but it has tremendous consequence for the world.
What happens next?
Biggest international headline of the hour.
The US has conducted military strikes.
This is the Venezuelan president.
Maduro faces multiple charges, including narco-terrorism.
This is Maduro being taken to the New York court.
Donald Trump indicated that Greenland might be next.
Where will Donald Trump stop?
A dramatic U.S. operation, power shifts in Venezuela. High-stakes geopolitics unfolding. What does this mean for Venezuela? What does it mean for the world? And what comes next? On point with the facts, unmissable insights. In your interest always. Fastest alerts, hard facts, 360-degree analysis. From breaking news to deep dives, when the world changes, News9 leads. News9, always on top.
Red Fort explosion. Let's get you all the updates. Following the blast, there is of course a South Indian connection of Dr. Shaheen Shahid. Because this is news of national import that search operations are underway across the entire Al-Falah University campus. The blast killed 12 people. Prices, however, of Nandini ghee have been hiked. KMF has defended. Nandini is the brand. I've been getting a lot of queries on my phone. What's for the people of Karnataka? Okay, you can play tennis as much as you want to, but I'm the umpire and I will say please. There is an eyeball to eyeball confrontation. Where is this going? What is the way out? The farmers, they can actually shake a nation. Both of you down, because I can also shout Prashantji.
Delhi is losing the fight against pollution.
This is not a story of just children. This is the story of every elderly person in the National Capital Region.
Delhi's hazardous air quality.
Smog capital of the world.
Delhi pollution has left us sick and exposed, also frankly embarrassed.
Hazardous air quality are disrupting daily life.
Growing issue of a toxic air looming large over Delhi.
Delhi's air quality index has been hovering between 300 and 400 for the past week.
The culprit was the same PM 2.5.
the main pollutant which is emitted from heavy industries, power plants, vehicles, crop burning and coal-based heating.
The overall air quality of the city continues to remain in the very poor category.
We look at how Delhi is once again struggling with danger.
It's not just about today, it's about the future.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
You're watching News9. These are the headlines of a tracking. PM Modi calls mother of all deals India's biggest trade deal ever, says not just a trade agreement, but a blueprint for shared prosperity. As the world's biggest economies change global trade forever, EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen tells PM Modi, "We did it, we delivered the mother of all deals," calls the India-EU partnership a win-win. European Council's President Antonio Costa calls the India-EU ties personal, says, "I'm from Goa, I'm a global Indian citizen," hails the new pact as the most ambitious free trade agreement ever and says the partnership goes beyond diplomacy. As protests intensify against UGC equity rules, Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan assures students that there will be no discrimination and no misuse of law. Kerala court denies bail to vlogger Simjita Mustafa in the abetment to suicide case linked to Deepak's death, cites risk of evidence tampering amidst ongoing probe. Trouble continues for Vijay's Jana Nayagan. High Court bench sets aside single judge's order, says the earlier order should not have been passed without going into proper merits of the case and without giving CBFC a proper hearing. Release of the movie further delayed. Grok AI wrongly translates Prime Minister Modi's Maldives post, inserts anti-India campaign, mistranslates a routine goodwill message into negative messaging. Grok issues a casual apology in Hindi with "Sorry yaar." A massive row has erupted over the UGC's new equity regulations 2026, with the issue now reaching the Supreme Court of India and triggering political, student and administrative backlash. Nearly 20 petitions have been filed in the top court challenging the regulations' definition of caste-based discrimination and alleging bias against general category students, particularly the absence of safeguards against false complaints. There have been protests across cities from Delhi to Lucknow to Bareilly. Take a look at this ground report.
जो हैं वो झंडे बैनर लेकर के यहाँ पर पहुंचे हुए हैं और विरोध प्रदर्शन कर रहे हैं। लोगों से बातचीत करते हैं। क्या नाम है आपका? क्या नाम है आपका?
मेरा नाम दुष्यंत कौशल है, जिला अध्यक्ष हूं सबड़ आर्मी से मुरादाबाद से।
क्या मांग है? आप लोग प्रदर्शन करने आए यूजीसी के बाहर?
ये अभी एक यूजीसी के द्वारा एक कानून पारित किया गया था, जिसको लेकर के हमने एक मांग, ये घेराव करा है आज यहाँ दिल्ली पर आकर के, कि ऐसा काला कानून जो सवर्ण समाज के बच्चों के लिए एक बहुत बड़ा अभिशाप बन करके आएगा, तो इसको हम चाहते हैं कि इसे ये बंद होना चाहिए। कब तक हम लोग अत्याचार झेलते रहेंगे? SC ST को झेलते हुए आ रहे हैं, जातिगत आरक्षण की व्यवस्था को झेलते हुए आ रहे हैं। अब ये UGC ला के खड़ा कर दिया। क्या हमारे देश के, हमारे पूर्वजों ने, सवर्ण समाज के पूर्वजों ने क्या इस देश के लिए योगदान नहीं दिया, बलिदान नहीं दिया? कब तक हम बोल रहेंगे, कब तक चुप रहेंगे? ये सरकारों को समझना होगा। सरकार विकास के मुद्दे पे काम करे, पर सरकार बच्चों को और आपसी मतभेद ये बढ़ाना चाहती है सरकार।
तरीके से सवर्णों के खिलाफ बता रहे हैं आप इस नियम को?
ये सवर्णों के इसलिए खिलाफ है कि इसमें एक यूनिटी कमेटी बनाई गई है, जिसमें सदस्य भी, जो सदस्य वहाँ पे बिठाए गए हैं वो भी SC ST OBC समाज के हैं, और जो पीड़ित व्यक्ति होगा भाई वो जो है किस पे आरोप लगाएगा? सवर्ण समाज के बच्चे पे लगाएगा। वो पीड़ित है नहीं है, इसकी जांच की कोई व्यवस्था सुविधा नहीं दे रखी है। अगर वो